Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Luffy ate different devil fruit left by Roger? Before I start, please do support for more awesome content, and subscribe my channel and like this video. Go support and follow the Milo F. Waters for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story. Link in the description. Wealth, fame, power. Gold Roger, the king of the pirates, obtained this and all else the world had to offer, and his final words drove countless souls to the seas. You want my treasure? You can have it. I left everything I gathered together in one place. Now you just have to find it. These words lured men to the Grand Line in pursuit of dreams greater than they ever dared to imagine. This is the time known as the Great Pirate Era, and now we will see it draw to a close. The mood was high aboard the Thousand Sunny, even with the cannonballs barely missing the ship. Sanji was back safe and sound. They had managed to evade Big Mom, and they had the wind in their sails. They even had a new crewmate to welcome. Carrot, the rabbit mink girl, said she was dying to see more of the world and hopped on the chance to join. Another victory for the Straw Hat Pirates. There was one problem: the 5 marine battleships trying to attack them. Thankfully, they had found a route along a rocky archipelago with fog to cover their escape. The few cannonballs that got too close were bounced away by Zoro's swords, Sanji's kicks, and Luffy's elastic blows. And with Jinbei at the helm, Frankie readying the coup to burst as soon as they cleared the outcropping, everything was looking smooth. So much, in fact, that many of the crew had already started celebrating. Usopp and Chopper were already dancing in joy and taunting the Marines. Keep it down! Nami ordered. Do you want them to fire on us more? Sorry, they both muttered, nursing their smoking bumps. The redhead just stomped off, studying her maps to make sure they were still on course. She glanced around, thankful the cannon fire had stopped. They needed to escape now before the wind turned against them. A shame no one else seemed to realize that urgency. Honestly, she loved these guys, but how long had they been on this confounded ocean? The Grand Line, especially this half, had weather that could flip like a coin. The only sensible one besides her seemed to be Robin, calmly leaning against the main mast for the chaos to die down. The navigator looked towards the bow and saw Luffy, eagerly reaching out to a giant fish that flopped out of the waves. Nami's palm met her face. The next king of the pirates, everybody. Always thinking with his stomach. Guys? A little help? Luffy's arms were rapidly being dragged towards the water as the massive mackerel fought for dear life. Zoro rushed over to help him, but something else caught their attention. Black clouds swarmed overhead. Lightning signaled a flash flood of rain. The placid seas bucked like a herd of buffalo. Oh crap, where'd this storm come from? Luffy cried. You idiots! Everyone, brace yourselves! Jinbei warned, hanging onto the wheel for dear life. Frankie rushed to grab the rudder. Sanji and Zoro, snapping at each other all the while, were ready at the ropes to change course at a moment's notice. Luffy had rushed in to grab Carrot, the rabbit girl, terrified, and held her close. Chopper and Usopp dashed inside with Robin quickly behind them. Brook, as per usual, was more concerned with dancing on the waves like a madman, and Nami was currently panicking as she was in the air one moment and underwater the next. She was ripped away from the ship by the raging currents, her lungs burning as she was dragged further into the depths. She pled for someone to rescue her, but how long would that take? She panicked, her mind drifting towards her friends, her sister and village, her mother Belmere, anything to fight off the despair in her heart. Ugh, my everything, she moaned miserably, colder than she could ever remember being. Nami slowly forced her eyes open, white grains of sand filling her vision. A violent cough racks her body, seawater spewing out of her mouth. Once she finally feels right to breathe again, Nami forced herself to her knees. She looks around the beach she's washed up on. Aside from the lapping waves and sand, the entire coast is one dense jungle. Not another soul in sight. Okay, I'm alive, she admitted. That's got to count for something. She slowly stood up on her feet and faced the ocean. Clear blue skies only broken up by bands of wispy clouds. The waves are gentle as they hit her feet. Nami wrings out her soaked orange hair, trying to formulate a plan. Okay, so no sign of the ship, or the crew, which means that they very well could have been swallowed by that storm without me. No, don't go there. They're tough, they're smart, well, most of them are smart, they'll find me, that's the important part. Nami, thankfully, had plenty of experience with roughing it and living off the land. Even if it was by force, she had tons of times where she had to scavenge for food and make do with little resources. And at the very least she had her climate act. She could summon rain clouds for water and shoot lightning to scare away predators. She reaches down to pull it out of her waist holster, but only grabs air. She tries again and again, her hand growing more frantic until she looks down and sees it missing. The dish. And once she finally runs out of breath screaming at the heavens, she goes back to rambling. Okay, so I don't have my best and only weapon. No, I lived without it before. I can do it again. She then marched off into the jungle, trying to ignore her still shivering body and the dread as she didn't see a single sign of civilization. All she had to do was build a fire, find a source of fresh water, find a reliable food source, find/construct some sort of shelter, and hopefully find a replacement weapon before nightfall, and without attracting any predators. Well, it's either do all of that or panic and never see my money, friends and home ever again, so off we go. She was thankful for a mostly clear path through the foliage and looked around for any fruits, edible plants she recognized, or even another person. Nami treaded the beaten path until it opened to a small dirt clearing where she was shocked to find some kind of altar. And too massive to be natural given it was 5 stories and intricately designed. The stone columns and steps were shockingly bright, somehow a pristine white despite long exposure to the elements. Nami approached slowly, eyes darting to find anyone and seeing none. She noticed the bizarre symbols engraved in the columns, the total silence around her. Not even insects or birds. It was almost like the island was waiting for her. The navigator slowly climbed the steps, her soaked shoes squelching each time. She desperately wanted her climate act back just in case anything was hiding behind the pillars. But soon she wouldn't care about that once she set her eyes on what this temple was protecting. Sitting on a 4-foot-tall pedestal in the center of this marble pavilion was the strangest fruit Nami had ever seen. A bundle of grapes, but each fruit almost looked like a glass bead, or soap bubbles. The bunch was topped with 2 golden leaves for an even more mystical allure, and despite resembling soap bubbles more than food, her stomach gurgled in need. As soon as she touched the first piece, she knew she needed this. She was eating all of these. The first fruit touched her tongue, and she tasted nothing. She swallowed and could feel it roll down her throat and drop in her stomach. No flavor, no satisfaction, nothing to actually cure her hunger. Nami instantly went for another. The cold didn't matter, her fear didn't matter, nothing else mattered except devouring every last grape until the stem was bare. She could only focus again once she was done. The navigator saw that the stem was gold just like the leaves, but it quickly withered into a black husk. Now with that done, Nami could turn around and properly get something accomplished. What in the blazes? Nami whipped around and soon saw an old, stout man with eyes so far out of their sockets that Chopper would probably want to study him. His white robes billowed in the gentle wind and his aged white hair was tied into an elaborate knot, alongside his foot-long beard. Something about his posture and tone told Nami that this usually composed man was cracking by the second. Of all the rotten luck! He cursed. I take a few extra minutes for lunch because the grandkids stopped by and Elaine made my favorite dessert, and this happens. Oh, may the heavens above forgive me! Curse you, lemon squares! Whoa, slow down! Nami waved. Who are you, where am I, and how the heck did you just get here? The old man instead rushed up to the pedestal, his eyes instantly filled with tears at what was once the treasure he was guarding. Oh Roger, I'm so sorry you went to spread the message and I failed you at the last minute. Huh? Roger? You mean the king of the pirates? You knew him? The elder scoffed. Knew him? I entrusted my life's work to him. The prophecy was clear. A.D. was supposed to be led here by his love of adventure so he could claim the One Piece and set the world free. But no! Some floozy in a bikini happens to grab at the exact minute I take my eyes off of it. In any other circumstance, Nami would have clocked anyone who called her a tramp. But then it all started clicking. Roger, the treasure on that altar, the One Piece. Oh my god, she gasped. This is Raftel, and that was. Yes, congratulations. You, a complete nobody, just became the king of the pirates, or queen, in your case. Okay, listen here. I get that I'm not some heavy hitter, but I'm a pirate too. I'm a navigator for one of the biggest crews on the Grand Line. Oh, whoop, did you tell me? What's your bounty right now? 66 million berry. Ahahaha. Roger's cabin boy was worth more than that? Try harder, missy. My name is Nami, Not Missy and most certainly not Floozy. And who are you to tell me I'm a nobody? For the first time, the man's eyes tightened. His frantic gaze became focused, sharp as steel. Do you have the faintest idea what you have now? The power at your fingertips. The One Piece is not some vault you can raid. It is infinite potential, grand enough to topple the emperors and the world government alike. The last person who had it shaped the very world as it is now. Nami could feel every syllable resonate. He was speaking the absolute truth. Okay, then if it's so valuable, why did Roger leave it instead of taking it for himself? Running out of time, he was. Said he would have loved to if his illness wasn't numbering his days. Alas, all he could do was pass on the word. About the fabled treasure that would drive countless souls to reach here until a worthy wielder arrived. She looked down at her hands. She had infinite potential? She didn't feel any stronger. She tried flexing her fingers, but no lightning, no animal transformations, no gold appeared. And now it's all for nothing, he moped, falling to his knees. A no-name lass who's more concerned with money swooped in and took it. Will you stop belittling me, please? And why shouldn't I? He yelled, leaping to his feet. It's not like decades of work was just lost. Oh wait, it was. 24 years I've waited on this island for Roger's proper follower. I promised him that I'd guard the One Piece till my dying breath. If he could see me now bamboozled by a little girl, not even a captain of a ship, the old guardian wept to himself. Nami had to admit she was starting to feel bad. She never would have taken it if she knew the truth. Well, I suppose there is one option left. He reached inside his robes and pulled out a dagger. Nami stepped back as it was pointed at her heart. Wait, hold on now. She pled, but the man's patience was gone. The One Piece sleeps in you now. All I have to do then is kill you and it'll return to its rightful place. Who knows? Perhaps your captain is the one to claim it? Nami's face turned red. This man had insulted her, laughed at her face, and now was threatening her life? That was the last straw. She could feel all her anger building in her core as he stepped closer. What right did this geezer have to attack her? Get away from me! She yelled, but he advanced. She backed away towards the edge of the altar, her heels almost over the edge. If he really did guard this island, he would know the jungle inside and out. And he'd proven very nimble for his age already. I said back off. Some pirate you are. Afraid of a little knife? You most certainly aren't, A.D. To think this is the ruler of the seas, grrrrrrr. All of her anger, her will to live, her burning desire to see her home again, it all throbbed in her soul until it finally exploded. Enough! A wave of force rippled through the air from Nami, smacking into the old man and making him drop his weapon. He fell to his knee and tried to steady his breath. That willpower, he stammered, could it be? She is the one after all? What the? Nami had no idea what happened either. And yet, strangely enough, it felt natural. Like it was just a part of her she never knew she had but always did. Conqueror's haki, she realized. Did I get it from the One Piece? No, the power slept in you all this time. The One Piece's purpose is to grant its user the ability to grow in strength and skill indefinitely. Indefinitely? Forever, getting stronger? Nami looked at her hands again, this time in wonder. Was that all true? And if so, how? Once again, an idea formed out of nowhere. Like something egging in her gut, she walked over and touched the old man's forehead. A small but electrifying rush passed through her, making her hair stand on end. Now she looked inside herself and felt something new. She closed her eyes and suddenly felt a new line of sight open. One of brightly colored auras that gave away intention as much as location. Observation haki. That same will now course through her muscles, filling her body with power. She channeled the feeling into her arm and watched in awe as it turned a gleaming black. Armament haki. She then glanced at the old man, now kneeling before her. His old wrinkled face was now filled with reverence. Very well done. Now you understand the power you possess. I am Tenmetsu, guardian of the One Piece and user of the port fruit, Nami finished, before suddenly disappearing in a flash. She was back on the beach she landed on, staring at her own footprints. Her eyes lit up in glee, realizing she could literally go anywhere she'd ever been. She popped back to Kokoyashi village, accidentally terrifying her sister by appearing on their porch. Before Nojiko could even speak to her, Nami was gone again. Now she stood atop the drum rockies, snowflakes landing in her still wet hair, a beanstalk in the upper yard of Skypia. The rebuilt doors of justice from the rebuilt Eni's lobby. The whole cake chateau. She finally settled on the royal palace of Alabasta, basking in the desert sun and letting her clothes dry. Once she was satisfied, she appeared right in front of Tenmetsu again. Now his head grazed the altar floor. That fruit of yours has a limit of 10 jumps per day, she shrugged, still pretty useful. Exceptional, he complimented. I am deeply sorry to have misjudged you, Nami. You are the successor I've waited so long for. Nami then stepped down from the altar, her mind buzzing like never before. She gained all 3 forms of haki, she had her own devil fruit. And aside from the Conqueror's haki, all of it came from Tenmetsu. That's what you meant by infinite potential. Anyone I touch, I gain their powers. I can take their haki, their fruits, their fighting styles, and add them to my own. Even I don't know where the One Piece came from, but I do know its purpose. Those little grapes now sit within your body, ready to infinitely expand and contain the multitude of powers you'll acquire so the curse of the Sea Devil doesn't tear you apart. His eyes, now so kind and wise, looked up to her in amazement. Go now, Queen of the Pirates. Make the world yours. Nami's gaze looked down upon him. A dark, sadistic smile filled her face as she unleashed another wave of Conqueror's haki. Tenmetsu crumpled on the floor, overwhelmed by her presence. She then strode off the altar, her mind racing as she realized exactly what he meant. The world could be hers now, anything she ever wanted. She could easily stand on her own and chart out the entire world. No, that's too small, she said to no one. I know what I want now. When she returned to the beach, she eagerly watched the coastline. The churning waters of the Grand Line stretched out for miles without another island in sight. It all seemed so expansive before. Just an hour ago this sea very nearly killed her. Now, I want to rule these seas. I will show everyone why I am Queen of the Pirates. With another of her jumps, Nami returned to the crow's nest of the Thousand Sunny. She peeked down to find the crew actually made out of the sudden squall, and were now rallying to find her. Luffy had clearly gotten a thrashing for being more concerned with the fish, and he wasn't the only one. Frankie was trying to hammer out the dents made in the ship's hull, insisting that his tears were just the sea spray getting past his sunglasses. She felt her heart warm at their concern, almost enough to rush down and hug a sobbing Usopp and Chopper. But now there was this building hunger, a need to become the best, and the best way to do that was with the element of surprise. So she hopped back to Raftel and simply waited, letting the ship draw closer in its own time. She also had only 1 jump left until tomorrow, but she could work with this. She soon watched as the Sunny managed to find its way to the last island of the Grand Line and spotted the crew disembarking. Nami headed into the jungle to appear lost and let the first crew member run into her, and much to her delight, that turned out to be Sanji. As soon as he saw her, the blonde turned into a love-struck hurricane who bowed on one knee and took her hand. Nami Swan, thank goodness. We were all so worried. Nami barely heard him as power pumped through her veins. If touching Tenmetsu was a jolt of electricity, this was a surge. Far more haki than Tenmetsu ever had. She swore her legs were glowing, becoming godly killing machines thanks to the black leg style. She could leap through the air with moonwalk. Her spirit burned with passion from the forbidden diable jam. Woohoo! She moaned, blushing. Thankfully Sanji just took that as proof of her love. So happy to see me. You're welcome, Nami Swan. She pulled him to his feet, locking his hands with hers. The two twirled for a bit, Nami indulging him for just a moment. It's great to see you again. I'd just love to see the others soon. With a sultry tone and a wink of her eye, the chef was putty in her hands and all but blurred back to the ship with Nami following his trail. Oh God, that felt so good. She shouted in her head, and if that was just Sanji, what will happen with the rest? Now I see why pirates are so brutal. Having so much power is intoxicating. I just want more. Minutes later she was back on the Thousand Sunny. It seems like only Luffy and Zoro went out to find her, making Nami mentally snark at how they made another brilliant strategic decision without her. Sure, send a guy who could literally get lost in a hallway to find someone on a remote desert island. Thankfully for her temper, she was quickly met with the rest of the crew happily welcoming her back. Chopper snuggled into her leg and his hoof just happened to graze her exposed heel. She suddenly felt his fighting and medical skills enter her body and mind. Not very impressive, but she felt something else in her stomach, the human fruit. She could suddenly tap into her body's full potential, plus it seemed to refine her control of haki. Usopp patted her on the shoulder. She expected very little from him, but was pleasantly surprised by the rush of new haki. Her observation skills grew greater, plus now she was a master markswoman. Then came Frankie, offering a fist bump which Nami took with a smile. While she didn't suddenly gain a mechanical body, she did absorb his boxing skills and engineering prowess. When Brooke waltzed up asking to see her panties, Nami smacked him over the head. And with that, she got a second chance at life thanks to the Revive fruit along with the power to manifest her soul and a major boost in swordsmanship. Nami seemed outwardly happy, smiling at everyone and insisting she was fine. Inside she was gritting her teeth. All of these were small fries, drops in the bucket compared to Sanji. When were Luffy and Zoro gonna get back already? She wanted their powers so badly she could taste them. Nami, thank goodness. And that was when Jinbei emerged from the deck below with a smile of his own. Nami, actually ecstatic, rushed forward to give him a hug. The second her arms touched him, she had to stifle another moan. An absolute rush of strength, the power of a warlord of the sea. She saw an ocean of new techniques, mastery of fishman karate, and an even greater spike in haki, observation and armament, pushed her body and mind even higher, and with that major rush, she was satisfied for the moment. She greeted Carrot with a pat on the head, adding the mink's strength and agility to her own. The redhead also felt something new under her skin, the animal people's signature electro ability. Then Nami turned and saw the only other woman on the ship smiling at her. Robin, Nami, it's great to see you. The redhead wrapped her arms around her best friend. She couldn't help it, she needed to have the power of the flower fruit. The problem was that she noticed Robin's gaze lingering on her. Oh, I think I jumped the gun. Nami tried to play it off as just being overexcited, but Robin had decades of dealing with the shady and unusual. She was savvy enough to pick on a person's unusual behavior, and wary enough to report on it. She was about to speak up in her defense when it finally happened. Two stretchy arms curled around her waist. Nami! You're okay. Luffy was back and suddenly even Jinbe felt like nothing. Now it was like was struck by lightning. Power! So much unbelievable power! The gum fruit, all three forms of haki, the gear transformations. All of it was hers now. She felt so damn strong. Luffy. She couldn't help but moan like a hooker. It felt so damn good. She would be unstoppable. Luffy! Let go of her. Everyone else looked confused. Robin seemed almost panicked, but why could that be? Nobody bothered to see the ugly scowl that crossed Nami's face. Damn you, Robin! If I have to blow my last jump on this. Huh? What's wrong? Luffy asked, innocent as always. He may not have understood why, but his grip still loosened. Since when is Nami ever so touchy unless it comes to money? We have no idea what this island is. Nami could be sick or an imposter. What? Come on guys, don't be ridiculous. Nami waved off. I just got off a deserted island. Who wouldn't be happy to see their friends? Usopp, for one, nodded along. See? I know I'd be terrified to be stranded somewhere with no backup. It's just natural, maybe, but how many things have we encountered in the Grand Line? The clone fruit, a seahorse that can steal memories, a man who can literally control you with strings like a puppet? Isn't it better to err on the side of caution? How would we do that? Asked Frankie. I have my ways. Robin reached behind her shirt and revealed a pair of handcuffs which she held by the chain. What are those for? Carrot wondered. These were an old tool of mine in my assassin days. These manacles are made of sea stone. Any devil fruit user would be half comatose wearing these. And you still have those, why? Zoro asked. Nami had to fight not to rush over to him, lest she make everyone more suspicious. A shame she didn't keep her eyes steady, which Robin noticed, because these cuffs have saved my life many times. From the likes of people who were my allies one day and tried to stab me the next. Nami has no devil fruit, so there shouldn't be a problem. Nami then watched as everyone else nodded along. Nothing was wrong with the idea, after all. Except the redhead had no idea what would happen. A person with one fruit was rendered motionless like they were dunked under the sea. What would happen with her for fruits? Would she explode? And thus Nami took a step back on instinct as Usopp came closer. Now everyone's eyes were on her, grimacing in doubt. Nami, come on, Usopp insisted. Just a few seconds is all it'll take. Guys, come on, don't be silly. It's me. Nami! We've been together for years. You all know me. Exactly, Zoro reiterated, and Nami would have enough sense to stop stalling and put on those cuffs. Because nothing would happen, right? Yeah, that does make sense. Come on, Nami! Just tough it out, Nami-swan. I promise I'll make your favorite dish to cheer you up. Her eyes darted around, everyone either cajoling her into this or glaring at her and waiting. She needed a way out of this. She still had one jump, but disappearing in front of them all would give her away. If she fought them off, same problem, and she would have to teleport away anyhow. So distracted by this dilemma, Nami didn't notice that Usopp was inches away from slapping the cuffs on her. She only snapped out of it to see them clasp around her wrist. Her eyes went wide. She tried not to shout in panic. She waited and waited, but nothing happened. The sea stone didn't affect her at all. Yay! She's fine! Luffy laughed, but boy, Nami, that was a really good joke. You had us all fooled. Almost everyone else took that as their cue to laugh along, assured that nothing had truly happened. This was their navigator after all. She was probably just overeager about returning to where she belonged, is all. That said, not everyone was convinced. Zoro and Robin glanced at each other, either of them convinced, and Jinbe noticed that Nami was not laughing herself. Her mind raced. The one piece that protected her. And sea stone mimicked the effect of being drowned in the sea. Did that mean even the ocean couldn't hurt her? Come on, Nami, lighten up. Carrot offered, you're fine and we'll all be heading off to a new adventure in no time. The redhead glanced at her crewmate's fuzzy face and indeed laughed. Ha ha. You're right. Now that got the others laughing again, happy to see Nami was in on the joke. Jinbe seemed to relax, but Zoro and Robin weren't amused. This all still screamed fishy to them. Man, you really got us going. Frankie chuckled. What, like you'd ever eat a devil fruit? Yo-ho-ho-ho. How positively absurd. Ha 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 ha. That is really funny. But hey, you want to know what's even funnier? Everyone looked at Nami, in amusement or wariness, as the redhead spread apart her arms and easily snapped the chain holding the cuffs together. The rest of the ship was dead silent now. Nami looked around with a smirk. Ah, come on, guys. You gotta admit that was pretty funny. Not really, Luffy gaped, his brain stalled. Nami, how did you do that? Robin asked, genuinely scared. With my hands. Like I can do this. Nami reached the left shackle with her right hand. She grabbed a hold and the sea stone creaked in protest under her grip. She reached underneath one side and tore the shackle off like removing a bandage, her wrist completely unharmed. The others watched in growing terror as she repeated the process with the other manacle. It was finally sinking in. Something was very, very wrong. Nami, cut that out. It isn't like you. Oh, but it is, Chopper. It's just the new and improved me. The one who can finally act the way I've always wanted. You all want to know what happened to me? Then let me tell you. This island is Raftel, and I have indeed eaten a devil fruit. But that's impossible. It might be, Robin, in your case. But for me? I've eaten the greatest fruit of all, the treasure of the Grand Line, the One Piece. What? The entire crew screamed. That didn't make any sense. The One Piece was a mountain of treasure or some secret message that only Robin could read or something. It was actually a devil fruit, or a super powerful one. What kind of sense did that make? Everyone who had observation haki used it. All 5 of them gaped at Nami's aura. For one, it was blood red and screamed of malice. This wasn't her usual fiery anger when she got upset. This was bloodlust and sheer greed all rolled into one. And the other was how massive it was. It was like Nami had the presence of a dozen people at once, all contained within her body. All of them were terrified. And Nami? Usopp stuttered. How are you doing that? Nami, stop it! You're scaring me. Carrot whined. She might not have had haki, but she did have the instincts to sense when a vicious predator was around. There's nothing to be scared of, guys. I won't hurt you as long as you do what I want. That's enough, Robin ordered, walking forward without a hint of fear and grabbing Nami by the shoulder. Nami, this isn't who you are. You're a loyal member of this crew and our friend. A fruit shouldn't have changed you so much. We need to look into this and let go of me. Nami's voice was cold as the sea stone she just shattered. Nami, listen to me, you're not well and now. Robin was knocked backwards, a fist to her gut sent her tumbling down and grasping for air. The others were now well and truly horrified for 3 reasons. 1. The fact that Nami could ever deliberately attack one of them. That wasn't one of her usual rage punches meant to blow off steam. That was a sucker punch designed to cripple somebody. 2. That Nami punched so fast that none of them could see it. 3. Her hand was coated in black armament hockey. What the? No way, Nami-swan? Trust me, Nami insisted, I'm very well. Because now I'm queen of the pirates, and that means I do whatever I want. And what I want now is to rule the seas myself. The whole crew balked at the idea until Robin stood up. The clear bruise on her abdomen confirmed that all of this was very real. Nami had gotten the One Piece, claimed Luffy's title for herself, and had gone mad with power. The others all looked on in fear and anger, baffled that she could ever do this to them. What happened to being like family? Nami, come on! Luffy pled, looking genuinely heartbroken. We care about you. You're one of us. Yes, I am, she admitted with a growl. I was weak. And nobody, even after all the things I've done and the places I've been, I'm always on the bottom of the totem pole. Even though I'm the one who makes the plans, who keeps everyone organized, who's the entire reason we can go anywhere. I don't know about you, Luffy, but something sounds wrong with that. The straw-hatted Captain Bogg said that. He knew how important Nami was. She was the navigator. He sure as heck couldn't read a map or chart courses. He trusted her implicitly. He looks confused only for Nami to stroll up to him. Do you remember what you told Arlong when you fought him? About how you couldn't use swords or read maps and all that, yeah? Luffy's confusion only grows. It's been more than 2 years since then, Luffy. And you still can't do any of those things. So that's a bad thing, Luffy. It means you know you have problems, and you do nothing to fix them. But I don't want to take your jobs. Take our? Are you hearing yourself? I'm not saying you should do everything by yourself. I'm saying you should not be such a walking liability when it comes to anything other than a fistfight. Luffy actually wilts at her words. He knew full well he'd messed up at several points and put himself and the crew in danger. Then why didn't you tell me any of this earlier? Nami's expression turns flat. If I did, would you have even listened? The young man looks around, notices that the others are actually mulling over Nami's words and can't help but with her. Even Zoro looks away when Luffy glances at him, making the captain deflate even more. With her point made, Nami walks over to Usopp and Chopper, who flinch at her presence. Doesn't it ever bother you? She asks them both, being seen as weak? Wouldn't you love to prove everyone wrong? I mean, I guess? Usopp shrugged, but I just don't worry about too much. Yeah, Nami, it doesn't matter what people think of you. Chopper urged, hoping she could still be reasoned with. As long as I have my friends, then that's enough for me. Nami sighed. Of course they think this way, they're both still weak. They couldn't know how this feels. She walks away, an arrogant stride in her steps. Well, just friends aren't enough for me anymore. And I'm done with that childish dream of mapping the entire world. I want all the world's riches. Subjects worshipping the ground I walk on. And enough power to crush anyone who stands in my way. As queen of the pirates, the world is my oyster, and I plan on taking everything I set my eyes on. The others all flinched at the sheer want in her voice. She was dead serious. She wasn't coming back. Her smile, truly full of malice and greed, did soften a bit as she glanced around. But I do understand that I wouldn't have gotten here without you all. I think it's only fair to repay the kindness you've granted me. So here's my offer, join my crew and fly under my flag. I can promise you will all be handsomely rewarded, so you're not one of us anymore. Is that what I'm hearing? That's right, Zoro. Me going back to my old post would be an insult to my potential. My destiny is to rule. I take orders from no one. The others all gawked. None of this made any sense. In one day Nami went from a loyal, trusted friend to a despotic menace. They all looked around, figuring there was no other way this could end. If Nami wouldn't listen to reason, then they would have to force her to cooperate. The redhead noticed nobody looked very happy with her. She sighed. So, that's a no from everyone, HM? Well then I guess we'll have to do this the hard way. A wave of pure force erupted from Nami and slammed into everyone. Half of the crew dropped to their knees, trying not to fall unconscious. The rest were still standing but just as horrified. What the? Robin squealed. That was? Ooh, my head hurts. No way. Yes way, Nami smirked. I have Conqueror's Haki now and I know how to use it. So, is that enough to convince you all? Nami Swan, please. Sanji begged, actually snapping out of lovey mode. This isn't right. You don't have to do this, that's where you're wrong. Nami then used her final teleportation to appear right behind a stunned Zoro. She eagerly grabbed the back of his neck and openly moaned at all of his power flooding into her. Then she grabbed Shusui right off of Zoro's belt. Hey, she can teleport! Robin yelled in alarm. Stop, Nami! We're your friends. You don't want to hurt us. Carrot begged only to get smacked across the face by the sheathed blade. I gave you all one chance to join me. You refused, so now you're all obstacles in my path. And that means I have to cut you all down. 1 second Nami was in front of the recently fallen Carrot. The next she was directly behind Sanji, slowly returning the black blade to its holster. One sword style, lion step. The second the sword clicked, Sanji howled in pain as a massive gash opened across his chest. The others all shrieked in terror. None of them even saw her move. Zoro was especially pale. Her form, her technique, it was all perfect, just like his own. Nami, for one, stood up and glowered as the chef writhed in pain. You refused to fight me because I'm a woman. I take that as a great insult. Nami, he croaked before he fell unconscious. Chopper rushed over to check on him while the rest surrounded the traitorous pirate. What the hell is the matter with you? Usopp yelled, you don't do that to a friend. Nami, Luffy ordered, his voice commanding, stop this right now. She just chuckled, licking her lips like she was craving more combat. Or what? You all still don't get it. I am queen of the pirates. I am above you. I am. Her hands crackled with electro, stolen from Carrot. Her legs were set ablaze with the power of Diable Jam, courtesy of Sanji. She held her new sword and it was soon bathed in armament haki. A goddess, another wave of conqueror's haki, far stronger than the last one, rang forth and made everyone fall to their knees this time. It seems like Zoro had the latent power within him as well but never unlocked it. Oh well, more for me, Nami cackled in glee before rushing up to her first target, Usopp. The sharpshooter had the Kuro Kabuto ready to fire one of his pop greens, but Nami wouldn't let him. Her hands shot forward like two rubber bands and grabbed a hold of his shoulders. Her elastic arms reeled him in like a fish, directly into a flurry of knee strikes that left him bruised and coughing up bile. As soon as he thudded to the deck, Nami met Brook's sword with her own. The two exchanged dozens of slashes in seconds, but Nami's held far more power. The skeleton was terrified to see her perfectly parrying and blocking all of his attacks, a mirror clone of his own style. Weapons left, Frankie's left hand opened up to reveal a plethora of machine guns that opened fire. Nami simply chuckled as she grew several extra arms and swatted the bullets away like flies. Oh, so you want to play the numbers game, huh? Fine then. Cuerpo fleur. A wave of flower petals suddenly emerged from Nami, and soon two perfect copies of her were standing beside the original. They both sent a Cheshire grin at Frankie, who stepped back in fear. One clone immediately charged at Frankie, activating her leg point to turn her limbs into columns of muscle. With that on top of the Diable Jam, every kick of hers rattled his metallic body. The other pumped her arms and her skin turned a bright pink, letting out a blanket of steam. Gear second. Now she didn't need the port fruit to vanish. She was simply so fast that the eye couldn't keep track of her. She rained down dozens of punches in a second. Robin and Chopper fell to the ground, barely conscious as bruises now covered their bodies. Ah. I love this. I love having these powers. She ranted, completely high on her own superiority. And this is only the beginning. I'll have the power to bend the elements to my will, command armies to conquer nations overnight. Even the Red Line will collapse before my might. Brook was soon blown apart by a flurry of overpowered thrusts, his bones scattering across the deck while his skull was frozen in terror. Frankie crumpled soon after, his massive shoulders dented and clutching his treasure in agony thanks to a particularly low blow. That left only Luffy, Zoro, and Jinbe standing to face the monstrosity Nami was becoming. They stared down the three redheads, nobody making a move for several seconds. Then Nami actually dissolved her clones, scattering them into pink petals. What do you think you're doing? Jinbe asked. How did Hawkeye once put it? You don't use a cannon to hunt a rabbit? So I don't need clones to beat you all, that would be absurd. Luffy and his crewmates scowled at that. They had seen these same arrogance in so many of the opponents they fought. Crocodile, Doflamingo, Big Mom, all of these people who spent so long at the top that they assumed nobody could ever bring them down. To see that same complacency in one of their own, coupled with all of the stolen powers, it was like a nightmare come to life. Get her, Luffy ordered, and Zoro and Jinbe charged forward. One had 2 swords primed to cut Nami down. The other readied a watery punch that could blow apart a battleship. That's it, try as hard as you can. She hollered, I want to crush you at your best. She even threw back Shusui, as if to prove she didn't need it. Heavy point, Nami's entire body suddenly exploded with muscle, growing to a staggering 7.5 feet tall with a dozen abs and hardened pillars of sinew for limbs. While Zoro quickly recovered his sword, Jinbe stayed on course. 5,000 break fist! He yelled only for his knuckles to meet Nami's own, water swirling around her engorged arm. He was then blown back by a shockwave, sent crashing past the Sunny's railing and skipped across the water like a stone before sinking. His final thoughts were on the crippling pain in his broken arm and wishing that his captain would forgive him. Nami, however, had a very different reaction. She laughed uproariously as she shrunk back down to normal. My fishman karate is stronger than Jinbe's. You hear that, Arlong? When I find you in whatever prison you're in, I'll tear you limb from limb. Ah ha 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 ha. That's enough. Zoro demanded around the Wado Ikemanji in his mouth. I'm stopping this right now. He readied himself for an onigiri what would finish this once and for all, only for Nami to cross her arms under her chest. Cien Fleur strike. Dozens upon dozens of arms cropped up, practically covering every inch of Zoro's body. The swordsman was stuck in place, his swords not being able to move at all. The second part then kicked in as the cocoon of limbs suddenly lit up with electro, exposing Zoro to thousands of volts for over half a minute. By the time Nami's arms faded away, the fearsome swordsman was panting for breath. But Nami wasn't done. She ran ahead, jumped into the air, and set her legs aflame with passion. Diable jam! Call your shot! Her heel crashed into Zoro's neck, folding his body instantly as he was sent down through the Sunny's upper deck and into the ocean as a smoking heap. Nami landed just in front of the hole Zoro made, watching as the Sunny was slowly filled with seawater. Nami, she turned to see Luffy literally trembling with rage, his eyes wide. His friends were attacked by one of his own turning on them. His ship had been damaged, more than likely beyond repair. And he'd been beaten to his dream and watched it used against him. A look at his aura was like staring at an inferno, barely contained as it wished to rage out of control. So, Luffy? Reconsidering your decision yet? You're gonna pay for this. He howled, going gear second instantly. Nami copied him, her skin going pink as she met his attack. Gum Gum Jet Pistol! 2 hockey-covered fists clashed so fast that the air exploded around them. The deck beneath their clash exploded into wooden shrapnel as their arms snapped back to their bodies. Gum Gum Jet Rifle! They clashed into each other fully, bodies inches apart on the upper aft deck. Nami's own tangerine trees were uprooted from the clash, along with most of the planks. Gum Gum Jet Bazooka! They met once more, 2 arms rocketing into each other around the main mast. The entire base exploded from the shockwave, crashing down like a tree and taking the main sail and Jolly Roger with it into the ocean. Luffy, stop! Robin begged, gathering up Brook and the unconscious Zoro. The ship can't take any more. What are we gonna do? Carrot panicked, desperately wishing Pedro or Wanda was here. We need a doctor, including for Chopper. Don't worry, everyone, Nami assured them all. I'll get us an even bigger, better ship. One that can travel the world and back as we conquer the seas. That's enough. Luffy yelled, that's not what being a pirate is about. It's having adventure, being free. Not just taking things. Oh, Luffy, you sweet, lovable idiot, to pirates something literally means to steal it. And as queen, I need to set an example. So I need to amass all the treasure, power, and territory in the world. Shut up. Luffy spread his feet apart, just as Nami did. Gum Gum Jet Gatling! They both cried as their arms become blurs, firing off like bullets. The ship was actually being split in half by the force of their clash, Nami's half wading into the ocean, while Luffy's dug into the coast of Raftel. Robin and Carrot now had to leap off of the bifurcated boat and onto the sand along with the rest of the crews so they didn't drown. Come on, Luffy, try harder! Nami boasted, break out the good stuff. You'll never beat me like this. The young man yelled in anger as his fists sped up faster, but his turncoat navigator matched him blow for blow. Then, much to his shock, Luffy started grunting in pain as Nami's fists suddenly got stronger. Oh, don't mind me. I've just decided to use all of my haki. The redhead's solid black fist started pushing Luffy's blows back. And unfortunately for him, she was not done yet. With the power of the flower fruit, Nami summoned a dozen extra arms. Now Luffy was buried under a barrage of fists, holes being blown all around him as Nami's side of the ship collapsed. Gahahaha. Too easy. When she finally stopped the onslaught, she could feel Luffy's aura still burning. She saw his inflated, haki-coated arms rushing at him. Gum Gum Grizzly Magnum. The wrecking balls that were Luffy's limbs rushed at her and demolished her half of the sunny. Too slow. She leapt into the air, hopping off the sky several times thanks to Moonwalk before activating Gear 3rd for herself. Her own limbs exploded in size before being coated in dark armor. Gum Gum Elephant Gatling. Luffy tried to punch back, but her armor was still stronger. The air was literally beaten out of him, and soon he was pummeled by her massive punches, being ground into the beach once his half of the caravel was demolished. Off to the side were the rest of the crew, being bandaged up by Chopper as best as he could. Just about everyone except for Robin and Carrot were badly injured. Jinbe had managed to swim back to shore, but even he was in no shape to fight after being sent skipping for miles. They were all horrified to see not only their beloved ship being annihilated, with Frankie clearly bawling for a change, but also their inspiring captain getting smashed into the sand. And yet Luffy still stood. His nose dripped blood, his body was black and blue with bruises, and he limped along on one foot. But he still stood to face Nami, who, much to his shock, was wading through the water. Despite clearly having multiple devil fruits. How? Was all he could say. I told you, Luffy. I'm queen of the pirates. I make my own rules and go where I please. Even the ocean respects my authority. So quit stalling. Go Gear 4th. Try your hardest to stop me. I'll prove once and for all that I'm the greatest in every single way. The wannabe king grimaced, from his injuries and the sight of his crewmates standing against him. Nami, please, you don't have to do this. You're right, Luffy. I don't have to, I want to. Gear 4th. Luffy watched in horror as his own trump card was used against. Nami's body was enveloped in steam as her muscles were filled with haki. But unlike Luffy, Nami exploded to almost 20 feet tall thanks to the sheer amount of haki in her, with titanic limbs and a wall of a torso to match. Snake woman, holy crap, Luffy gulped. Ah, now you see it. She crowed, the black-red patterns around her eyes heightening her predatory glare. How I'm above you in every way. And this is only the beginning. I'll have all the devil fruits of the seas. I'll have enough haki to rip islands apart. I'll have a crew of thousands to enforce my reign. Tons of gold and jewels, servants to tend to my every need and want. I will have it all. She activated the flower fruit again, summoning an entire circle of copies around the terrified young man. Their fists condensed into their arms. Wrath of the Pirate Queen. 20-fold King Kong gun. The 20 Namis slammed their fists into Luffy's head, shocking all of Raftel and sending tsunamis rushing out across the ocean. Luffy's comatose body fell to the ground. His beloved had nothing more than a mangled pile of straw. Luffy! The rest of the crew cried in horror. Oh, don't worry, he'll live, the red-headed clones all said in unison before fading away. The original Nami then shrank back to normal and strutted forward. The others inched away from her in terror. This was a total nightmare. Nami wasn't even tired after all of that. He'll get a front-row seat to my ascension. You all will. She then summoned the full force of her conqueror's haki to knock them all unconscious. Then she waltzed up to Zoro and took hold of his prized swords. She looked out to the sea and saw the Jolly Roger of her former crew still fluttering on the remains of the ruined mast of the Sunny. The old Nami is dead, she growled, unleashing a trio of flying cuts that sliced the flag and the wooden mast to pieces. Now to start the rise of the Queen of the Pirates. Little by little, Robin's mind cleared up. She felt sore all over and was immensely grateful for the comfortable mattress underneath her. She just wished that horrible dream would stop replaying in her mind. Hey, Robin? You awake? The Ravenet looked to the side and saw Nami sitting at her bedside, a kind smile on her friend's face. Robin turned over and saw Carrot gently snoozing under the covers of her own bed. Yes, I'm awake, she answered. I just had the most awful dream. Oh? About what? And so Robin explained about the nightmare she could still vividly picture. About how Nami had somehow gotten the One Piece, gone completely mental, destroyed the ship and conscripted the entire crew on some insane plot of world domination. Carrot woke up halfway through the retelling, Nami pouring her some water just as she did for the archaeologist. By the end, Robin was almost laughing at it all. Nami seemed to find it quite amusing as well. Hee hee, wow, what did you eat last night? That sounds crazy. Carrot chuckled along and Robin had a small smile. It did sound totally ridiculous, didn't it? Like Nami could or even would do any of that. She just checked with Sanji to make sure she wasn't given anything too spicy tonight, and then it'd be smooth sailing on the… Robin's eyes suddenly went wide in terror. Nami? Yes, Robin? This isn't the ship. No, it isn't. Huh! Carrot whipped around and indeed the three ladies were not in the ladies' quarters on the Thousand Sunny. She and Robin were in two iron-frame beds like something out of an old hotel in a dome-shaped room with white and blue tiles lining the walls and bright blue carpet on the floor. The left wall was dominated by a massive glass window several feet wide that let in crystal blue skies and sunshine. Where are we? This is Weatheria, the island I trained on when Kuma separated us all 2 years ago, Nami explained, still perfectly calm even as Carrot rushed to the window. Sure enough, the mink saw the ground outside was as white as her coat, and the ocean was a distant stretch of blue miles below. We're in the sky. Yes, we are. Thanks to my port fruit, I can teleport anywhere I've previously been, and I can take people and things with me as long as I touch them. Isn't that convenient? Neither Robin nor Carrot could answer as Nami made a clone of herself. I'm gonna go check on the guys and see if they're still awake. Breakfast should be soon. The guys around here are kind of lazybones. As the duplicate walked out the door, that left two terrified ladies with Nami, who was all smiles and cheer. Nami, you? Yes, Robin, everything you dreamt was real. I'm still queen of the pirates, and I'm dead serious on my dream. And you are going to help me, like hell I am. Robin crossed her arms under her chest and prepared to summon the biggest set of arms she could to crush Nami into paste only for something to wrap around her neck. Robin glanced down and groaned at the irony. Nami had summoned her own arm to throttle her. I suggest you cooperate, Robin, Nami said, her voice even but dangerous, otherwise you won't like what happens next. If I could crush Luffy, do you really think you stand a chance? And then Nami, it's okay, Carrot, I won't hurt you as long as you don't step out of line. As Robin reluctantly put her arms down, the arms sprouting from the top of her spine disappeared, and the archaeologist sat herself down on her bed. Okay, so let's assume we do follow you, Robin asked. What do we get out of it? Whatever you want. The woman and the mink turned to each other, in shock and disbelief. Robin's glare returned. I want you to rebuild our ship and let Luffy be captain again. Nami just chuckled. Okay, whatever you want as long as you still follow me. Is this your idea of a joke? Do you think we'd ever follow you now? You betrayed us all, attacked us. What happened to us being obstacles? You were then, but not anymore. Now you can all be part of my dream. Robin had to swallow exactly what Nami could be a part of, but remained calm. Okay, on the purely hypothetical chance that I would ever listen to you again, what is there to gain by aligning with you? Nami answered that by placing her hand on Robin's forehead. The archaeologist was about to order her away when she yelled in pleasure. Power! Unbelievable power flooded through her body. What is this? It's incredible. The One Piece allows me to copy and perfectly replicate any and all abilities from any one touch, alongside their strength, speed, stamina, and the like. And it just so happens, I can grant those same abilities to anyone else. Nami spawned a hand on Carrot's chest that reached up and touched the mink's head. The rabbit girl oohed in wonder as her mind tingled with new information. Suddenly she could perform surgery and knew of hundreds of diseases along with their cures and treatments. Then she found an encyclopedia's worth of knowledge on the construction and operation of boats. If she held a violin, Carrot could play a dozen gorgeous melodies without even trying. Huh! You have their knowledge too? Yep. I'm as good a cook as Sanji. I can build ships as well as Frankie. And I can fluently read poneglyphs. Robin gaped at her. You can? Then that means dash. Don't worry, Robin. I won't take your dream. You can still be the one to discover whatever the world government wants to hide. She then sat behind the older woman, massaging her shoulders as she whispered in her ear. And just imagine what it'll be like. We can storm into marine bases, rob them blind and take any and all fruits we find. We'll go through battleships like they're bath toys. And if I get my hands on an admiral… Robin let out a moan at the thought. Deep down, she could feel the burning hatred she had for the world government being stoked. The very thought of Aokiji being melted by magma and a Kainu frozen solid made a very dark, repressed part of her mind laugh. A second Nami then appeared next to Carrot, cradling her paws with an eye of wonderment. And just think! We'll go all the islands of the sea. Across all the blues, we'll see everything the world has to offer. We'll just take everything of value along the way and claim them as my territory. Carrot suddenly found the whole idea much more agreeable, plus it wasn't like she wasn't getting what she wanted anyway. Maybe it was all of the new information buzzing in her mind, but the mink was starting to truly see things from a new perspective. However, before we move on and do any of that, I'm going to make one thing very clear. The two Namis placed a hand on each woman's forehead again, and both felt their breath being taken away. All the new power Robin possessed was gone in an instant, leaving her muscles feeling horribly weak. Carrot's head pounded as all of that information was siphoned out. I am the queen. You both are my crew. You serve me, you follow my every command, and you let absolutely nothing and no one convince you otherwise. Obey, and you'll be rewarded with powers, riches, and maybe an island to call your own. Disobey, and I can take it all away in an instant. And if either of you even consider double-crossing me, we won't. Carrot piped up, we'll do anything you say. Honest, Captain? The Nami clone gave an approving smile, rewarding Carrot with a pat on the head and a on the cheek. Exactly how it should be. The original looked at Robin and could see her mind turning. The revenge on the government that hounded her for so long, the answers to the mysteries of the world, and more power than she could ever dream of. It was all there for the taking, and yet Nami could sense her doubt. Thankfully, she had just the thing to convince her. Robin? Yes, nah, Captain? Already knowing who's in charge. I knew she was smart. That strength I just granted you? Yes? That was about 10% of what I'm capable of. The Ravenette's eyes bolted open. That was 1/10 of Nami's strength now? Her mind raced. Just what the hell would it all feel like? No wonder she changed so much, and while I'd never make you as strong as me, I could reward you in other ways. Now Robin was confused. Why did Nami sound seductive? That confusion morphed into her mind shouting the loudest what? Imaginable as Nami at her. No warning, no gentle leaning in. The redhead had snatched up her lips and was moaning in delight at the taste. Robin jerked her head back, baffled. Nami? What are you dash? Robin, I think it's pretty obvious what I'm doing. The question is why, and the answer? Nami leaned up to Robin's ear. Because ever since I first saw you on the Going Merry, in that Y-as-hell purple corset, and then Nami Robin couldn't think anymore. The lust in the woman's voice was palpable. Of course, Robin had been complimented by many men and a handful of women. None of them were ever so bold and daring. As queen, I think it's only fair that I have someone take care of my urges. And since men do nothing for me, I need a bride. But it'll be reserved for only my best subject, or subjects. So what do you say? Robin couldn't think, couldn't speak. All she could think about was the fingers cradling the back of her head, and how they could easily snap her neck. About how Nami was so far above her, and that somehow turned her on like nothing else. All she could do was nod, Nami's smile only growing wider. Excellent. Now then, breakfast should be ready and the boys should be joining us shortly. Break. Within 15 minutes, what used to be the Straw Hat Pirates were assembled in the house's main dining hall. Nami sat at the head of the massive table with Robin and Carrot to her sides. While the ladies were happily eating the pancakes and eggs prepared for them, the men were in much worse spirits. All of them were dead silent. The only exceptions were Sanji, who complimented the chef, and Usopp asking why all of the girls were suddenly acting like best friends. That's because we've come to an understanding, Robin answered. A shame you didn't see it the same way. You mean betraying everything we've worked for? Zoro snarled, on his 8th tankard of booze already. I don't know what the hell she told you, but I'm not buying it. Yeah, guys, what happened to being friends? Chopper yelled. We were supposed to find the One Piece together. Well, Chopper, things change, Nami said nonchalantly, but you can all still do great things. For one, you can still pursue curing all the diseases in the world. You'll just be doing it as the head of my R&D department, and if he refuses? Jinbe asked. Then we'll eventually find him, seize his research, and he'll have to work that much harder to prove his loyalty to me. The hell is wrong with you, lady? Frankie blurted. We aren't just gonna be mooks in your crazy scheme. Oh, you will, Frankie. After all, you built the second ever ship to sail the entirety of the Grand Line. And I only want the best for my new vessel. I'm thinking a battleship, plenty of gold leaf, about 100 cannons on each side. It'll be the perfect flagship for my battalion. What, do you want to wage war with the Marines? Them and everyone else who opposes me. That is my right as queen of the pirates. Bullshit. Everyone's glance jerked towards Luffy, his arms crossed and refusing to even touch the food in front of him. He glared so deeply that he might end up breaking his eyebrows. The very air around him shimmered in rage. Now Luffy, that's no way to talk to someone, Robin admonished, only for the ex-captain to snort in anger. I can't believe you, Robin. You and Carrot were my friends too. And now you're just gonna ditch me for Nami and hurt tons of people? Why? Watch your tone, Luffy, Carrot warned. You don't want to make Captain Nami upset. She's not the captain. I am. You were, the redhead corrected, and I defeated you. Trial by combat and all that. More like mutiny, Brook glowered. It's such a shame when a band of brothers turns on itself. Tomato, she shrugged, pissing the others off more. And now that you guys have had some time to think it all over, let me try this again. Join my crew and be rewarded. No, they all answered, making Nami shake her head. I didn't need observation to see how that was going. Well then, perhaps you all need a little more coercion. Robin. Carrot. Both women stood immediately, turning to her with a bow. Yes, Captain, I've decided what my first act of piracy will be. Come here and I'll equip you both properly. Both women obliged and Nami let different skills flows into them. The men were all baffled, only for Robin to quickly grab Soul Solid from Brook and make a few masterful practice swings. Carrot's legs caught fire as she triggered the diable jam. What the? How? You little thief! Oh gee, it's not like that's how I made my living beforehand. Nami rolled her eyes. Now then, my crew, let us begin our first operation as I never thought of a name for us. What, you aren't the Nami pirates? Joked Zoro. No, I always hated crews that just named themselves after their captain. It's just so lazy. The goddess pirates? Robin proffered. Excellent idea! Simple, but very telling. Nami rewarded her underling with a long, sensual on the lips that made Robin moan, and the guys all dropped their jaws in shock. All right, goddess pirates. Move out and capture any and all weather mages. I want this island under my control within the hour. They both bowed and left out of one of two doorways out of opposite walls, Robin to the left and Carrot the right. Nami, for her worth, simply sat down back at her seat and resumed her breakfast. The men wondered what she was doing, only for screams of panic and shockwaves to rock the walls. To the left was Robin, utilizing Brook's sword, fighting to strike down any and all mages she came across. She made sure her cuts were only surface level, knowing her captain wanted any and all captors alive. They begged for mercy, wondering how one of Nami's own friends could attack them like this, but Robin never answered their pleas. I knew the world was cruel, cold place for so long, she thought, casually strolling through the halls to seek out any other prisoners. I remembered that Alabasta tomb where I surrendered myself to death. I felt so powerless then. Her new observation Haki could feel the pair of bearded men in cloaks sneaking behind her. She chuckled at how easy this was, rushing forward as a dozen slices cut down the wall and left the two Weatherians shivering fear. I will never be weak again. I'll uncover this world's secrets and give the rest to my queen. In the other half of the palace, Carrot was taking a much more violent path as she barreled down walls. With her new mastery of the black leg, the solid stone fell like pieces of paper. The rabbit girl felt all restrictions leave her mind. It felt so good to wield this power. The mages were pathetic opponents, at best activating someone knots to try and slow her down. But thanks to the additional strength and speed Nami granted her, about 15% of her own, she could rush against the squalls and slice the ropes with her gauntlets. I'm so strong like this. It's like I'm invincible. What will happen on the next full moon? And all the while, Nami calmly sat back and waited until 20 minutes later when Robin and Carrot returned to the main dining hall. Behind each of them were dozens upon dozens of islanders, all of them trembling in fear and many sporting bruises and scratches. Nami? What is the meaning of this? An elderly wizard in blue demanded. When we agreed to house your friends, that didn't give them free rein to attack us. Oh, Herdas, you were too kind to me when I needed you all. And that's why I've granted you all a prestigious honor. An arm sprung along every mage's body and tapped their forehead, Nami relishing as a wave of new knowledge entered her mind. Her already prodigious understanding of weather evolved into completely mastery, along with the knowledge of all the various properties of the fabled weather balls. From this day forward, this island is my domain. Weatheria shall serve as the base of the goddess pirates, and all of its citizens are now under my control. Anyone who crosses me will be killed. Nami, why are you doing this? Her tutor asked tearfully. What could possibly be worth all of this? Don't take it too personally, old man. The rest of the world will follow in time. Nami stood from her seat and turned to her new crewmates. Carrot, there's a large antechamber on the lowest floor of this building. Escort the mages down there and guard them. Punish anyone who escapes with impunity. The mink bowed before leashing a mighty burning kick, forcing the mages to run towards their new dungeon or face her wrath. Robin, gather up all of the weather ball plants and any other inventions they have lying around. I want a full stock of our arsenal. At once, Captain. The archaeologist left to follow her orders, leaving the men of the disbanded Straw Hat Pirates gawping in terror. You just conquered an island. Well, to be fair, Jinbe, these guys are one-trick ponies when it comes to their society. They literally have no infrastructure, currency, legal system, or even any form of military. Taking over this place would have probably been doable by myself without the One Piece. But oh well, that's in the past. I'm looking towards the future, and all of you will have a role to play in it. First she approached the whale shark man. You shall act as an enforcer of mine. If an island steps out of line, you'll be dispatched to correct any issues. I have but one request. I will be taking Fishman Island. Consider this a blessing. If any other morons like Hody Jones show up, you'll be the one to fillet them. The fishman bowed, appreciating that at least his home wouldn't ever have to worry about slavers again, even if they might have to pay exorbitant taxes. Nami moved on to Frankie, the cyborg glaring over his shades. You will be my shipwright, of course. Once we have the materials, you will construct me a ship worthy of my stature. A shame you still don't have the Pluton blueprints. That ship should never be built. He was silenced by a sucker punch to the gut that forced him to the floor. Watch your tone. I can easily have you scrapped, and just conquer Water 7. Next, she moved on to Sanji. A part of her did appreciate that he wasn't twirling around like a lovesick idiot singing her praises anymore. He even flinched as she approached, holding a hand to the gauze covering his chest. You will henceforth be my personal chef, preparing the best cuisine for me and my crewmates only. But the others, they'll be served gruel and like it. They should be grateful they don't starve. And I won't tolerate you sneaking them anything, understand? The blonde laid his head down on the table and cried, now cursing his inability to fight back against women even more than in Eni's lobby. Nami paid him no mind and walked up Zoro and Luffy, the two giving her stares so severe they would have made a lesser person keel over. You two will both be instructors to my army. Luffy will teach them about close-quarters combat while Zoro will specialize in swordplay. You'll also jointly teach them the usage of haki. Luffy raised his fists while Zoro readied his blades. Nami just casually went gear second and laid both pirates flat in a moment. You both will learn your place soon enough, she warned before stomping over to Usopp, the sniper clearly shaking in his chair. You will be the head of my weapons development team. Your first job is to make me a replacement climate act. One that can properly utilize the weather balls since I no longer have Zeus. Aren't you, super powerful enough? There is no such thing as too much power, Usopp. I'll have your things brought to a spare workshop to use. The long nose groveled for a bit as Nami strolled over to Chopper, the reindeer sneaking pancakes off of other plates. You will eventually head my medical ward and heal my soldiers. Along the way, I want you to look into the panacea you've dreamed of. In fact, Robin told me about a lead in Dressrosa I'll look into. Really? That doesn't sound too bad. Oh, you will find life to be very easy as long as you remember my main policy. I reward competence and punish failure. Serve me well, and you'll be rewarded. The same goes for Robin and Carrot. I am many things, but a hypocrite is not one of them. She then turned to the one person she hadn't addressed, Brook. The skeleton crossed his arms and for once had nothing to laugh about. I'm not playing anything. Good, because I don't need a musician. I do have somewhere for you to go. Nami then placed a hand on Brook's skull and poured it away. Brook, no! Luffy tried to rush forward, heedless of the thrashing he'd just gotten. Zoro and Sanji both held him back, insisting that he can't do anything now that she's already gone. Nami jumped back a moment later. Where is he? Where'd you take him? Twin Cape, so he could reunite with Laboon. The others all paused. She gave Brook exactly what he wanted. What was the catch? Nami could see their skepticism and scoffed. He and Laboon will act as a toll booth, charging ships a fee for passage into the Grand Line down the road. For now, he'll simply have some downtime. I may be powerful, but I don't practice wanton cruelty. And I hope all of you remember that. Usopp, follow me to your new workspace. The rest of you, return to your room. The long-nosed did as told and followed Nami through the now deserted halls of Weatheria, creeped out by how quiet the place has become. She opened what had clearly been a laboratory for a weather mage, a few weather ball plants sitting in pots near a desk with all of his tools salvaged from the Thousand Sunny. I'll be checking on your progress daily, Nami warned. Who knows? I might even pay you if the results are satisfactory. Nami then shut the door behind him, leaving Usopp with little option but to start figuring out these plants. At least he did notice several books and scrolls to start reading first. The Queen herself then strode back up to her room where Robin was standing in front of a pile of the mage's research and inventions. So, what do we have here? An exceptional stock of work, my captain. We could make an entire meteorological arsenal with all of this. An excellent first step, I would say, Nami agreed as she sauntered over, blatantly staring at Robin's chest the whole time. But obviously just the three of us isn't enough. We need a proper crew. I need commanders among other things. Say no more. Captain Robin reached up and unbuttoned her blouse. I will be your first bride. Please use my body however you want. Nami wasted no time, exploring the body of her secret crush of many years. And after many hours of asserting her will in another, addicted to how Robin's voice hitched and the taste of her nectar, Nami thought one thing when she went to bed that night. It's good to be the queen. The beating hot sun was great for the tangerines, but it meant more work for the farmer. Nojiko carried bucket after bucket to water the trees. She individually inspected them all for bugs or rot, toiling from dawn until dusk when she could wipe the sweat from her brow. She watched the calm, blue ocean from afar, wondering where her sister was now. The guilt twisted in her once again. She could have been on an adventure right now. She shuffled back to her home, but someone was leaning against the front door. Huh, Nami? What are you doing here? Oh, hey, Nojiko. What, can a girl just come by to catch up? Not when you're supposed to be on the other side of the world. And even stranger than that was Nami's outfit. Gone were the bright, breezy clothes that looked designed for comfort. Now she was black high-heeled pumps, a tight violet corset, a ruffled black skirt that left much of her legs exposed, and even a black bandana across the top of her head with her bright orange hair falling out the back. Did someone on your crew die? Nami just laughed, but something sounded off in her voice. Why did something like that sound so threatening? Quite the opposite, actually. I'm here to celebrate with you. Come on, let's go for a walk? The navigator then strutted off, leaving her sister baffled but following anyway. As they walked, Nojiko picked up on a few more things. A katana sheathed in white leather was attached to her waist. Her entire gait was different, almost marching through the village. And she barely spared a glance at anybody, despite the waves and welcomes she got. Even when Genzo tried to get her to chat, she just brushed past him. Nami, what's happened to you? Just watch. Nojiko then walked into what used to be Arlong Park. While the pagoda was destroyed, the actual tiled inlet had been repurposed into a functioning dock. Kokoyashi in particular had a small trading presence in the East Blue, especially for a certain grove's tangerines. It was also known locally as Luffy Harbor, after the now legendary pirate who saved the entire island from the vicious fishmen. As soon as Nami's shoes clacked onto the tile, her gaze turned ice cold. Nojiko wondered if she was just having bad memories before a marine officer walked up to her. Good afternoon, ma'am, he said with a tip of his cap. Can we assist you in any wa-dash? Nami just smiled as the officer looked her in the face, and no doubt recognized one of the infamous Straw Hat pirates. He was about to alert the guards when a katana sliced clean through his neck like butter. Nami, I still think about that day, the navigator reminisced, heedless of just committing murder, and how I had to beg him for help. She sheathed the blade, the entire dock frozen in fear. Several villagers were rubbing their eyes and murmuring to each other. They could have sworn that was Nami walking in with Nojiko, but she'd never do something so heartless. And how much I hate myself for it, she continued, her hands curling into fists. 8 whole years of serving that bastard and someone else has to put him down. No, that's a mistake I'm going to fix. Faster than her sister could blink, Nami rushed forward and leapt into the air. Gum giant axe. The redhead's upturned foot suddenly exploded in size before slamming down on the docked cruiser, smashing the ship to smithereens and sinking it in an instant. Nami landed back on the dock on her feet, heedless of the people scrambling out of the dock or the Marines surrounding her with muskets. "Cat burglar Nami," the captain announced, "you are hereby under arrest for piracy, destruction of property, endangerment of civilian lives, and second-degree murder of a Marine officer. Do you surrender?" Nami let out a cold chuckle. "You know what else I've always hated? That epithet, cat burglar? Really? What am I, a common house thief?" A wave of pink petals blew from her body as her arms tripled, making the crew back up in terror. Nami just passed off the Wado Ikamanji to a thoroughly terrified Nojiko before disappearing. "Huh! Where'd she go? I thought Nico Robin was the one with the flower powers. Someone ring for reinforcements." "Oh, don't you all worry," a voice whispered on the wind. "I'll make sure you never forget me." The civilians ran for their lives as a blurring Nami quickly struck down every last sailor in the yard. Nojiko's eyes grew bloodshot as she tried to keep track of her demented sister, but it was no use. She could easily cross the harbor in the blink of an eye, dents appearing in the tile with her footsteps. When she finally reappeared, the harbor was a wreck and dozens of men lay dead or broken at her feet. And just as casually as she arrived, she took the sword back from Nojiko and walked out, a satisfied smile on her face. She kept walking even as footsteps rapidly approached her. "What's wrong, sister?" she asked without even looking. "Who are you and what have you done to Nami?" The brunette screamed, holding a pistol at the back of her head. "Answer me. Put that down before you hurt yourself. Don't you talk to me like that. Nami would never attack innocent people, and she doesn't have all sorts of insane powers." "I don't know what you are, but dash!" A flash of orange hair swishing around made Nojiko pull the trigger. Nami didn't even flinch as the bullet smacked into her forehead. The older sister gaped in terror as the shot plinked right off, falling to her knees as the gun fell from her shaking grasp. "What I am," Nami explained, "is queen of the pirates. Now, come with me. There's something else I want you to see." Too terrified to think properly, Nojiko shuffled along as Nami went back through Kokoyashi village and up a familiar cliffside behind their old home. Nami stepped up the wooden cross buried in the dirt, a pinwheel idly blowing in the sea breeze. "Long story short, I found the One Piece. That's where all of my powers come from." She thrust her arm down into the dirt, looking down at the grave. "And with this power, I can do anything I want." Time crawled by until Nami raised her arms, shaking off the loose dirt. Nojiko wondered what just happened until a gray, decomposing hand ripped out of the grave. The brunette stumbled backwards in terror until another arm broke the surface, followed by the rest of the body. No way. Her plaid shirt was full of holes and stained almost solid brown. Her maroon hair was only a few clumps on her head, several bones were visible through the dry, crackling skin, and a gaping hole revealed her head with one eye totally missing. And yet all Nojiko could do was pinch herself. "Bibi Belmere? Nojiko? Nami?" The ex-marine grumbled before coughing up several clouds of dirt and worms. "Ugh, damn, what happened to me?" She was cut off when Nami wrapped her arms around her. The redhead cried and sobbed, with her sisters soon joining in. For just this 1 minute, Nami wasn't the ruthless queen of the seas. She was the little girl who watched Belmere die defending her, and her only other family, and they were finally reunited. Once they were finally settled down, Nami used the port fruit to send them all back to Weatheria. Belmere was sent off to have her body repaired and upgraded, while Nojiko was given a full rundown of the past several days. "Good God, so that's how you were able to do all of that?" Nojiko awed. "Well, I guess it is a shame that you didn't have that One Piece when Arlong was around, and that's part of why I want you here. I'm going to track that fish bastard down, and I want you to help. But more than that." Nami stood from the table they'd been chatting at, staring out the open window and into the vast ocean far below. "I finally feel like I'm accomplishing what I want. The whole drawing the world thing just felt like something I clung onto because I had nothing else to live for. And once I was free, I always focused on the here and now." She turned back to her sister, a hand on her shoulder. "Now I'm going to focus on my future. And I don't want you to have regrets like I did, so what do you say? Do you want to join my crew?" The brunette nodded without a moment's hesitation. There was a slightly steely look to Nami's gaze, no doubt expecting Nojiko to fall in line. But after seeing her decimate an entire squad of Marines and revive their mother, Nojiko would follow her to the ends of the world. It was a mix of respect and admiration with a twinge of fear. Exactly like Nami planned. Besides, the thought of snapping Arlong's neck like driftwood was just too tempting to pass up. Princess Nefertari Vivi of Alabasta slowly cracked her eyes open, an errant sunbeam startling her. Once she rubbed the sleep away, she realized she had slept in by several hours. A welcome surprise at first, but what about her court? Surely Igaram would have woken her. She peeked out of her window and noticed just how quiet Alabasta was. Where were the haggling merchants or guards making the rounds? The brunette walked outside her room and gasped. Her guards were lying collapsed on the floor. She rushed through the halls, astonished to find more and more of the palace's staff were unconscious, but how? None of them were injured, there was no damage to the walls and nothing was stolen. Even stranger, every guard was rolled on the floor with rolled-up eyes and foam leaking from their mouths. Vivi burst into the throne room, expecting to see her father. Instead, she saw a familiar face in a very unusual dark outfit, draped across the throne like it was a common lounge chair. Nami? What happened here? What have you done? Oh, hi there, Vivi. The redhead waved. Don't mind me. I just felt like visiting an old friend. But your mean old guards wouldn't let me in. So, I just let myself through. What dash? Where's Luffy? And the others? Oh, don't worry about them anymore. I'm in charge now. And now it's only a matter of time. Vivi wanted to scream and shout only for something outside the throne room's many windows to capture her attention. Little white flakes drifting down from the sky. What the? Is that snow? And indeed it was, much to the absolute amazement of the people of Alabasta. Children started trying to catch the falling flakes of white, while the adults looked up to spot the source of the freak weather. None of them could have guessed that it was from what looked like a ball of clouds that was now suspended miles above Alabasta. But as delightful as the show was for the Alabastans, they soon had much more to look at. The guards stationed along the capital's outer wall spotted something rapidly approaching from the east, kicking up a massive plume of sand as it came closer. Ready the cannons! 2 shots fired in quick order, a lookout keeping careful track of their arc. He almost dropped his spyglass when he saw the stone cannonballs sliced out of the air, the oncoming attacker not slowing down at all. That same lookout soon gaped in horror as he spotted the intruder's face. This all Sunday? What? Nico Robin? The one who kidnapped King Cobra? I'm serious, sir. It's her, wielding a sword and riding some kind of floating cloud that's hightailing it this way. Alert the palace. We need to make sure she doesn't have unfinished business with the royal family. Captain, another attacker spotted from the south. What? How many? Just one, sir. But apparently it's jumping every few seconds. Indeed, a second interloper was approaching. But this one was marked by geysers of sand exploding up a few hundred feet apart. An even stranger report came in from that lookout. You're going to have to repeat that. What? Igaram shouted into his transponder snail. It's true, sir. Some kind of rabbit girl thing with flaming legs is heading right for us. Shaka! Pell! To the gates. We won't let anyone threaten the safety of our kingdom ever again. The Jackal and the Falcon both rushed out to meet these two bizarre foes only to get more bad news. Guards spotted more invaders from both the north and west. It was now clear that Alabasta was under attack. The people were soon shuttled back into their homes, the kids crying out that they wanted to keep playing with the new snow. The western attacker was riding a Sandora dragon, the fearsome beast sporting several smoking electrical burns. Several cannonballs tried to slow the steed down, but the massive reptile just ignored them. Atop the predator was a woman in blue silk stolen from the market of whatever town she showed up to first. All right, little sister, time to see if a pirate's life is for me. The power of Electro crackled around Nojiko's hands, a smirk on her face as she leapt off her steed to begin her stage of the plan. Far to the farmer-turned-swashbuckler's left was another figure barreling towards the Sandy Island's biggest city. Much like Carrot, she was traveling under her own power. Unlike her, it was thanks to the rockets firing out of her back. Just wait until the world government gets a look at the new and improved me. Belmere was reborn with a cyborg body courtesy of Frankie. Now standing over 8 feet tall and built like a brick wall thanks to Chopper's surgically implanted muscles, the ex-captain was a towering behemoth of a woman with arms thicker than steel cables and legs that wouldn't buckle from a tidal wave. The cavity made from Arlong's shotgun had been replaced with a steel plate that she bore around her maroon flower-patterned shirt that matched her hair. Her missing eye was covered with a black eye patch. Her old, tattered marine coat dangled from her shoulders. If that corrupt asshat Nezumi actually did his job, My daughters and home would have never suffered under Arlong. I'll tear the entire navy down myself. You can't be serious, Vivi cried. Call off this attack right now. Nami laughed. And why would I do that? The whole point of this is to send a signal to the world government that the goddess pirates are a force to be reckoned with. What's the point of that? You'll destroy my kingdom and endanger my people just to soothe your ego? Oh, of course not. It's also to persuade you. Persuade me to what? Not hate you forever? In a sense, actually, yes. You remember how many people Baroque works had? How long Crocodile spent planning his little operation? We're going to do what he couldn't in a day. Ha! Good luck. Alabasta has stood for 1,000 years. Like you and 4 other people could ever do it, I accept that challenge. The sheer ego in Nami's voice made Vivi shudder. Just what in the hell happened to make her old friend like this? The princess steadied herself. She couldn't show weakness. Alabasta would survive this just as it had survived Baroque Works' incursion. Oh, how wrong she would be. In the east quadrant of the city, Robin quickly revealed that her cloud mount had another purpose. Once she had reached the steps leading up to Alabasta, the Ravenet leapt up and her riding clouds spontaneously exploded into a massive wall of white. Several of the guards charged with their spears but bounced right off like it was rubber. Robin then landed in the middle of the formation, a few hundred guards all pointing their weapons at her. She held up soul solid, letting the power of her soul surround the blade with an icy aura. "En garde," she said with a taunting smile, before blitzing away. And soon dozens of them began to fall, bleeding gashes across their chests, or outright having their arms sliced off. By the time Pell flew over the scene, he was horrified to see Robin standing unscathed amidst an entire platoon. "You dare attack us again?" he cried, swooping down to claw her eyes out. The archaeologist casually stopped his talons with her blade and locked eyes with him, the supreme confidence in her gaze making him flinch. "You misunderstand me, Mr. Falcon. Last time I was following the orders of Sir Crocodile, but with my own agenda. But now," she leapt dozens of feet into the air, summoning 100 arms from her back in the shape of wings. Pell's eyes practically popped out as she actually took flight, and dozens more limbs emerged from her sides, all curled into fists. "Now I willingly serve a higher power. I am Queen Nami's loyal servant, and I will claim your power for her greater glory." Towards the south, Shaka was panting in his half-jackal form as he stared down his foe. To think that a little bunny girl could somehow clobber his entire squadron, several more single-handedly, and was giving him this much trouble. "Give up already," she demanded. "Queen Nami needs your devil fruit. You'll have to pry it from my dead hands, monster." Shaka shifted into his full beast form, rushing forward on all 4 legs, but the rabbit girl ducked aside with barely an issue. Even worse, those fiery legs of hers slammed into Shaka's stomach with a perfect axe kick that sent him spiraling high above the city. "Humph, stupid dog," Carrot sniffed, reaching into her pockets for a little surprise guaranteed to put him down for the count. The mink revealed a small marble, a gray so dark it was almost black. As much as she would love to flex her new powers some more, Nami was very particular about keeping any devil fruit holders alive. High in the sky above Alabasta, Shaka prayed that the others were having better luck. He spotted a Sandora dragon beach just before the northern staircase. He was wondering what happened to that other invader, only for the small gray marble to appear right over top of him, and then he, and a huge chunk of Alabasta, witnessed a massive blanket of thunderclouds just appear over the capital city. Dozens of white-hot bolts rocketed down, striking not only Shaka but dozens of other buildings. Several caught on fire, much to the panic of the citizens. "What the hell was that?" Vivi screamed. "Oh, you like that? It's my signature line of meteorology-based weaponry, the weather of mass destruction." Nami gloated. "And those storm pods are just the first of the line. I can't wait to have scientists and researchers to further them along." The princess just fell to her knees. To think she just had something like that, and casually unleashed it on her home. "And Nami, how could you?" "Vivi, don't be too upset. Consider this an opportunity for yourself." For the first time, the red-headed queen stood from the throne and walked over to her one-time crew member. "You've been involved with the world government for your whole life, yeah? Willing to infiltrate one of the most notorious underworld organizations in paradise to save your home. And how does that government repay you?" Vivi refused to answer, but her tightening fists and steely glare were answer enough. They branded her saviors as criminals, gave the nearest captain around the credit, and left Vivi to either hide her friendship or be branded a pirate herself. Nami circled around her like a viper, poisonous words dripping from her mouth. Your whole future has been set in stone, hasn't it? Since the moment you were born, you were to be queen of this country. It just so happened that you came to love that idea. But what of other royals? The ones who end up cast out and disgraced? My father would never do that. Ever. Vivi's gaze met Nami's, the two pitting their wills against each other. When either broke after half a minute, Nami gained the slightest grin. True, he wouldn't. Cobra is one of the good rulers who actually cares about his people. But what about others? Wapol? Crocodile? Doflamingo? Vivi tried her damnedest not to growl. Hearing that another warlord had usurped a peaceful nation and had gotten away with it for a decade, and it only came to light because the one just admiral admitted to it all, she had to stay in her room that day, screaming up a storm at how the government could possibly be this inept, corrupt, or both. Aha, but that isn't the worst they've done. You don't even know about O'Hara, do you? Nami touched the back of Vivi's neck and suddenly the princess's mind was flooded with images. An island in flames, a little girl with black hair running from place to place, hunted like a wild animal until her own will to live was nearly gone. She was left shivering, terrified of what she saw. Somehow she knew it was all real, and turned to see Nami giving her an actually sympathetic look. If they did it to an allied nation before, what will stop them from doing it to you? Vivi, the world is broken and the government needs to be rebuilt. And I won't rule it alone. I'll need advisors with experience, you know. Back outside, Igaram was sweating bullets as the kicking claw force were getting tossed around like ragdolls. This Nojiko was proving to be the toughest enemy any of them had ever faced. Not only was she a master at hand-to-hand combat, but she could electrify her blows to paralyze them. Igara Papa! Igaram shouted, firing shots from the guns hidden in his elaborate blonde rolls. But the blue-haired barbarian just smirked. Armament hockey, Igaram gaped as she smacked and flung the bullets aside, pockmarking the ground and putting holes in the nearby buildings while leaving her unharmed. Ha ha! You're gonna have to better than that, old man. My sister Queen Nami gave me more than enough power to deal with you. You won't be laughing for long, villain! One of the kicking claw force yelled. Reinforcements are en route as we speak. Oh yeah? Then I guess it's time to use my devil fruit. Heavy point. Nojiko's body exploded in size, more than doubling in height to almost 12 feet of enormously muscled power. Just in time for the few hundred royal guards to show up. Finally, some proper punching bags, she chuckled, her hulking physique shrouded by electro. Who knew being a pirate felt so good? Look out, world! Queen Nami and her big sister are coming for you. Ha 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 ha. Belmere could only agree as she faced down her own miniature army. Her jet propulsion easily outpaced them. She leapt and swerved around the street-side stalls and narrow alleyways, eventually ending up in an open plaza. The maroon-haired menace looked around and saw guards wielding spears and swords pouring out of all 6 streets that led here. Perfect, she leapt hundreds of feet, aided by the hydraulic jump jacks built into her feet. She smirked as the guards futilely stared at her before pulling off both of her hands to reveal dozens of gun barrels in her forearms. Gatling rain, a literal storm of bullets, made the crowd scatter. Dozens of soldiers fell to the ground nursing bruises and concussions. You're lucky I'm loaded with rubber bullets today, ya pussies. You're not worth me using the real thing. That's enough. Belmere crashed back onto the ground just in time to see a young man glaring at him through a pair of sunglasses. His sandy blonde hair blew in the breeze along with the edges of his black jacket. Master Koza! One of the guards cheered. Thank goodness, this woman is a monster. Actually, I'm an undead cyborg, but close enough. I don't care what you are, Koza grumbled. All that matters is that you stand down before I drag you and your insurrectionist of a daughter to Marineford for a trial. Belmere just raised her hands in a boxing position, eager to see if he could offer a better challenge. Koza just breathed and let his devil fruit take over. His skin turned a mottled gray, his face morphed into a long snout ending in a light pink nose. A spindly tail several feet long emerged from behind him, and his back seemed to bulge as toughened armor plates came up. Hee hee, so you're not just the environmental minister, huh? I serve the kingdom however I can. To make sure I could better protect myself and do my job, I ate the dillo fruit. Heh, perfect. Queen Nami could always use another devil fruit. Belmere barreled ahead, shaking the ground with each footfall. Piston knuckle, her left hand literally jetted out from her arm, nailing Koza in the chest. As he flew backwards, the Alabastan fighter curled into a ball and rolled to a stop, only barely injured. Heh, not bad. Belmere reattached her fist with a shrug. I knocked down a building on the way here with that. That was a hospital, you monster. Koza yelled. Don't you care about all the lives you're ruining? All I care about is helping my daughter and bending Marines over my knee. Now let's see how long I have to punch until I crack that armor of yours. Koza ran up to meet her this time. He went for a sweeping kick to the knees, but the cyborg woman easily leapt over him. She then whipped off her eye patch, revealing a bright red metal eye in the socket. The armadillo man then felt a red-hot laser blast into his armored back and slammed him into the ground with a kaboom. Gahahaha. What's the matter? Didn't see that coming? Belmere quickly grabbed Koza by the tail before he could do much else. Now let's see how much punishment you can take. Vivi, please forgive me. Nami and Vivi stood side by side as the goddess pirates returned one after the other, hauling the various knights and captains that were sworn to protect Alabasta. Robin arrived with Pell carried by a pair of clones, the Falcon Man missing his robes and covered in slash marks. Next came Carrot with Shaka, the Jackal Man clearing having 2 broken arms. Princess, they both muttered, we're sorry. Do you see it now? Nami told her, for people, and your best couldn't even take them. Vivi wanted to muster up a response only for 2 more people to barge in. Nojiko was literally dragging an Igaram by his hair, now missing several curls, and what was left was charred. Belmere had Koza over her shoulder like a naughty child before dropping him to the floor. So, mother, sister, what do you think? Both of them kneeled before Nami, heads down in submission. Thank you for granting us these powers, my queen. We live to serve you. They're so loyal, Vivi stammered. That's because, unlike the world government, I don't care about bloodlines or protocol. All I care about is results. Those who succeed get rewarded and those that fail are punished. Doesn't that sound so much better than the world nobles? Why, you vile witch! Igaram coughed. How dare you try to poison the mind of our dash? Quiet! Carrot barked, kicking his face in. You have no right to speak to her like that. I remember how hard he worked to protect you from Baroque works, Nami continued without a care, risked his life acting as a decoy. But tell me, what benefit came from that? All he's really done is keep you weak and small, ready to uphold the same status quo that's left the world so broken and corrupt. I was raised from birth to be perfect queen of this country. But tell me, what about the rest of them? What if the 5 Elder Stars decided another nation was a threat like O'Hara? Nothing, I couldn't do anything, it'd be considered meddling in foreign affairs. And then they'd turn their weapons on you next. So, you could do 2 things. You could stay here, rebuild your little sand kingdom and be the pretty little princess the world wants you to be. Nami then summoned an arm on each of the fallen Alabastan knights and moaned in delight as their powers flowed into her. While Igaram might not have had a devil fruit, he was still a master of battle tactics, and could even cut if above most of Crocodile's riffraff. But the real prize was the 3 Zoans. Nami relished the feeling, her muscles being reinforced, her bones growing more resilient, and her already immense strength being amplified. Or you can be like me and make the world whatever you want. Crush anyone and anything that tells you no and take command of your destiny. Nami placed a gentle hand on Vidi's cheek, letting the tiniest trickle of her power through. It was barely 1%, but it still made the princess fall to her knees in shock. So, what do you say? Nefertari Cobra may not have been the strapping young prince he once was, but he was still strong at heart. He kept his eyes peeled on the entrance to the bunker, waiting for Igaram to report that these goddess pirates were defeated. His hands curled into fists at the very thought of these plunderers invading his kingdom. Assuming they didn't have bounties, he would personally have them imprisoned until their bones turned to sand. Halt! One of his guards shouted, Who goes there? It's me, Vivi? Cobra cried, Is that you? What of the kingdom? It's fine, father. The kingdom is in good hands now. Before either Cobra or his guards could reply, 2 long, elastic hands reached down the torch-lit hallways and snagged the king by the shoulders. The guards furiously chased after him, but were met by some purple-haired giant of a woman who clocked them both in a second. When Cobra could finally focus again, he saw he was being held hostage by none other than Nami, one of the saviors of his kingdom. What is the meaning of this? What have you done to my daughter? I've helped unlock her true potential, isn't that right, Vivi? Cobra looked to the side and indeed saw the blue-haired light of his life bowing before this vixen. Yes, Queen Nami. Thank you for helping me realize my true purpose. Does this mean? Yes, you are officially a member of the Goddess Pirates. Your first task is to formally declare Alabasta as my territory. Order all of the guards to surrender, and start emptying out the treasure vaults. I expect my chambers on Weatheria to be full of gold and jewels in the next few hours. At once, Your Majesty. Vivi? Vivi, stop. You can't just turn your back on your country. Father, don't worry. I'll build us an even better kingdom. One where we don't live in fear of the world government. Queen Nami will take over this world and rebuild it into something so much greater. He was about to yell and scream, but Nami cut him off with a wave of conqueror's haki. She threw his crippled old body aside and peered through all of the new knowledge flowing through her mind. Robin? Yes, my queen? Nami placed a hand on her head and transferred the new memories to her archaeologist. I want all of the poneglyphs on Sandy Island translated. Any details on Pluton will go straight to me, the rest you are free to consider your property. Thank you, my queen. You're so generous. As Robin practically skipped off to her task, Nami headed back up through the secret tunnel that led to the ruins outside of Alabasta. To think just last week she was content serving an idiot of a captain, hoping to accomplish some childish fantasy. Now here she was claiming an island as her own. She transformed into her new falcon woman form and flew into the sky to get a good look at her new territory, wondering if there were more devil fruits or treasure to be found here. I think that's become my favorite word, more. More treasure, more islands, more power, more crewmates. I'll just keep having more. The white sea floated idly above the Grand Line, as peaceful as always until grave news rang through Skypia. God Gone Fall had been attacked. The Skypians hid in their homes, terrified about the possible return of Enel. Even though they and the Shandians had settled their differences since the revelations of Noland and the City of Gold, they knew that the maniac's lightning powers were nigh unstoppable. It was only thanks to Luffy's unique devil fruit that he stood a chance. A band of warriors and civilians went to see Enel's return for themselves. What they found was far more shocking. Their faithful knight collapsed in the pumpkin gardens, his armor wrecked and Pierre barely conscious. Coney's gasped at the orange locks on the leader's head, while Loki noticed her entourage hauling bags of stolen dials and weapons. What a shame that lightning Logia fruit isn't an option anymore, Nami sighed. Oh well, I'm sure it'll pop up eventually. Now then, nice to see you again, everyone. And Nami? Coney's gaped. What have you done to Gone Fall? Oh, I just wanted to examine his armor and get Pierre's bird Zoan, but he got all huffy. So, I had to put him in his place. Sorry about the mess, but while I'm here. Vivi then stepped forward with a polite bow. My queen has told me that your people practice trial by combat, correct? Wiper strode forward, his trusty burned bazooka across his back. No, actually it's not. The current god is to pick a successor and then train them over many years. That monster Enel took over by force, and the only reason he lasted so long was his power. We won't tolerate it happening again. The goddess pirates looked at the hostile looks they were getting and shrugged. This is your only chance, Robin warned. Disobey our queen's wishes and you will live to regret them. Loki held up her rifle in defiance, aiming square at Nami's forehead and swearing that the newly united Skypia would never let another tyrant take over. The goddess pirates claimed the White Sea as their territory an hour later. Loki would join as the group's weaponsmith, creating devices with dials new and old. Coney's would become the crew musician, her harp skills bolstered with a stunning talent for the violin courtesy of her new queen. As the massive vessel known as Thriller Bark sailed along the waters of the New World, Gecko Moria was in as foul a mood as usual. He had lost both Absalom and Perona, his reputation was in shambles, and his status as a warlord was the only thing he had left. And with that disaster in Dressrosa now becoming public knowledge, who knew how much longer that would last? The ghoulish titan then noticed it. That familiar Jolly Roger, the lion head on the front. At last! He cackled. Time to finally repay that straw hat. Even better, the Thousand Sunny didn't even fire even as it drifted right past the wrought iron gates of the island ship. Moria waited at the nearest harbor, expecting that idiot Luffy to pop out any moment, but he was nowhere to be seen. In fact, now that he looked at it, the entire ship was abandoned. The warlord growled in anger. Someone else must have finished them off. He was so distracted by his rage that someone was given ample time to hit the detonator and blow up the tons of TNT loaded on the replica of the ship. The goddess pirates quickly poured it in, and Nami delighted in taking the power of another warlord, moaning as the shadow fruit became hers. She already had big plans for this one. Now, to pillage the island. Bari Island used to be a peaceful deserted island, home to stunning mountains for adventurous explorers and white sand beaches. It had once been known as a little hideaway that the especially wealthy in the New World would park their yachts and indulge their curiosity. That all changed when Buggy the Clown and his pirate temp agency stormed in, building a town of colorful tents overnight. Any ship that came within a few miles of the place was just asking to be plundered down to the last berry. In the largest of these tents, Buggy himself was holding a merry court as his own crew and the dozens he had under his employ ate, drank, and celebrated another successful haul. The only exception was the curvy black-haired woman who was standing off to the side, looking utterly bored as she filed her nails. "Come on, Alvida! Cheer up, tch, stupid brutes," she scoffed as she headed outside to soothe her headache. As she walked between the carnival big tops, Alvida wondered where she had went wrong. All she really wanted was to win over that charming monkey D. Luffy, and Buggy had been a useful ally in that. But now here she was 2 years later, stuck in this freak show, and having no idea where Luffy even was. She pulled out his latest bounty poster, staring longingly at the smiling portrait. Her heart fluttered as she whispered, Soon I'll find you again." That was easier said than done, since all of her old ships were long sunk, and she had no men directly under her command. The only option was to somehow hire a crew to go after the Straw Hats, but they would need an Emperor-level team to have a chance. If even Enies Lobby and Impelled Down weren't enough, what possibly could be? As the raven-haired beauty lamented this, she spotted something off in the distance. She reached into her back pocket for her spyglass and gasped at the sight. "That Jolly Roger! I need to tell them all." Alvida ran back towards Buggy Town, throwing off her shoes and letting her smooth fruit powers help her slide down the street until she reached Buggy's big top. She yelled at the top of her lungs that the Straw Hat Pirates were heading this way. "Aha! At long last!" Buggy crowed. "Time to finally repay that flashy idiot for humiliating me." "Didn't he help you escape from the world's worst prison?" Alvida asked him. "True, and that's why we shall only defeat him instead of killing him. The glory we'll have at bringing him down. And just imagine the money! Kabeji, Moji, everyone, prepare for battle." The big top itself sailed out alongside over a dozen of the crews sworn to Buggy's side. They almost couldn't contain themselves when they saw the lone sight of the Going Merry sailing towards them, not even bothering to change course with a battalion of enemies approaching. A shame that none of them noticed the periscope peeking from underneath the waves. While the Thousand Sunny was gone and a proper new ship was still being built, the soldier dock vehicles were quite easily remade. From inside the shark-submerged 3, Robin watched through the periscope. "Your trap has worked, my queen. Surface at once, then. I'm ready to test my latest weapon." The archaeologist did as commanded, the submersible slowly making its way towards the dozens of anchored pirate ships. On board the replica of the Going Merry, Buggy was fuming as every crevice of the ship was empty. Heck, the decks needed sanding and every room inside was bare. What was going on? Their answer came as an unusually huge shadow flew overhead. Everyone looked up to see a massive bird with something clutched in its talons. Several small marbles dropped, with only a few, including Buggy and Alvida, getting the idea to run for cover. The icy blue drops exploded into blasts of frigid wind that terrified the pirates as they were frozen solid in an instant. The entire deck of the fake Mary was soon frostbitten. Ahahaha! My cold front works exactly as planned. Note to self, give Usopp a raise. Nami soared down to the deck to find Buggy cowering behind a box in total terror. Wait a minute! I know you! You're the Straw Hats navigator. What in the flashy hell did you just do? Nami frowned hearing her old title. I was his navigator. Now I'm queen of the pirates, and I'm going to take your devil fruit, your crew, and your island as mine. She then stretched an arm out faster than Buggy could ever hope to track and grinned as the power of the chop fruit became hers. Alvida, behind a barrel on the opposite of the deck, watched in awe as Nami's fingers seamlessly detached from her hand and dissolved into tiny pieces the size of snowflakes. I don't think I've ever seen anyone waste a devil fruit like you, Buggy. You essentially had a Logia fruit without the elemental property. You could turn your body into such minute pieces that you'd be all but unhittable, but no. You got lazy and now you're going to help me just like your little girlfriend back there. Alvida gasped but stood from her hiding place. How did you know? Please. My observation hockey spotted you a mile away. Now hold still. One of Nami's hands detached and grabbed Alvida's forehead, granting her the power of the smooth fruit. The redhead then threw Buggy aside and stood off the railing as her submarine breached the surface. Carrot peeked out the hatch. Well done, my queen, thank you. Start throwing out my new pirate cruise and empty the cargo holds. I want to see just how much treasure we now have. She turned only to see Alvida down in her knees, her head pressed against the frozen deck. Wait, please. Your power is simply incredible. Please allow me to join your crew. What? Buggy cried. You can't be serious. After all we've been through together, all I wanted was to reunite with my Luffy. You're the one with this insane plan. You and your stupid mercenary service can go to hell. And you can tell that to him too. Nami quirked an eyebrow. She started sorting through the knowledge she got from Buggy, and a truly devious grin came to her face. All right then, Alvida. I'll consider letting you join the goddess pirates if you can knock Buggy down in the next 10 seconds. The clown was about to cry that there was no way Alvida would turn on him so quickly right before her mace crashed down on his skull and left him a drooling, unconscious lump. Not bad, Nami admitted. You've got a long way to go, though. You're starting from the bottom given how pathetically small your bounty is. Alvida just bowed, happy as could be. Thank you, my queen. I will work day and night to accomplish your goal. When many imagine the criminal underground, they think of shady bars on abandoned streets filled with cigar smoke and the smell of stale beer. It just so happens, in this case, that was true. As former warlord Sir Crocodile brought another fine rolled cigar to his lips, his grimace grew strained. Mr. 3, you better have a good reason for calling me here. The wax man just blanched on the other side of the line. Why are you still using those code names? Anyway, we have a serious issue. I contacted Buggy only to be met by someone else. Who's this someone else? Start making sense. It's some completely new crew, and they took over Karaibari Island in no time at all. Crocodile exhaled a long puff before slowly taking another drag. You mean to tell me some nobodies have put a foot in the door with our operation? Described their Jolly Roger. I remember the skull was solid gold, with long orange hair coming off the top. Even weirder than that, I could have sworn I saw Straw Hat Luffy's ship docked there, but I couldn't find hair or hide of the brat. There was, however, Nico Robin, so Miss Allsunday finally abandoned that idiot. No doubt that's where this newcomer got the intel, and weirder still, the princess was there. Nefertari Vivi! This could all be some sort of elaborate revenge scheme. Crocodile gave a look to the bartender, who wisely decided now was a good time to check inventory in the back. With the room to himself, wisps of sand started to pour off of him. You have some nerve to drag me into this. Why contact me at all? There's no trace of me in that little business of you and the clown. But there is, sir. The other Baroque Works members have all been targeted. The new Spider's Cafe was burnt to the ground. Now the ex-warlord was starting to feel his stomach drop. He firmly believed in an old saying. Once was a chance, twice was a coincidence, 3 times was a pattern. And seeing so many of his old affiliates getting whacked was a serious problem. He suddenly heard the sound of crashing wood on Galdino's end, followed by a moan of pain before an eerily familiar voice came through. Very nicely done, Makita, Robin purred. Your kilo fruit powers will be invaluable to our queen's cause. Kaya ha ha ha. Thank you so much. I can't wait to see that bastard's face when my new captain catches him red-handed. Indeed. I'll even allow you the honor of presenting the wax fruit to Queen Nami. Consider yourself an official member of the goddess pirates. Crocodile stumbled to his feet. His mind was racing, trying to piece together what the hell was going on. Nami, that was one of the lower-rung members of Luffy's crew. How did she take over, let alone conquer an island overnight? That was as far as he got before the front wall to the tavern exploded. He turned around to see Mr. 1, or Daz Bones as everyone else called him, lying on the ground in a charred heap. Sir Run. A heeled boot stomped on his back as Nami strolled over him. Crocodile could hardly believe the waves of power rolling off this girl, let alone recognize the 2 people flanking her. Well, remember me? Zala sashayed in, her black lips in a smirk. It's about damn time you pay for abandoning us to the Marines with that bogus operation in Alabasta. Later, Vivi growled, her hands curling into fists. First I'm going to rip him apart for all the pain and suffering he caused my kingdom. Patience, Nami said, instantly silencing them. First things first, Nami released a wave of Conqueror's haki that instantly sent the mastermind to the floor, cigars rolling out of his mouth. She licked her lips before grabbing him by the hair and cupping his chin. Nami moaned at not only the impressive strength flooding her body, but at finally gaining the power of a logia fruit. She transformed her hand into sand and began slowly draining the moisture from Crocodile's body, snapping him awake and desperately clawing at his attacker. Please have mercy. Oh, but why would I do that? This is finally the chance I've needed to show the world what I'm made of. Soon the man who came within a hair's breadth of finding the ancient weapon Pluton was a desiccated husk barely clinging to life. Nami carelessly chucked the man behind him and let Zala and Vivi inflict whatever revenge they wanted. She simply ordered the finest scotch the bar had to offer, reflecting on all the wonderful new powers she had. Nami's personal chambers on Weatheria were slowly becoming a trophy room. The rounded walls were decorated with the flags and mementos of her conquests. She admired the fur coat that now slung at the foot of her four-poster bed. She had to give Crocodile some credit. It was stupendously comfy and gave her the regal presence she wanted. As she laid in bed, Nojiko snuggled into her right side. Nami was quite surprised to hear that her big sister was interested in becoming her bride, but the redhead saw no reason to deny her. She was the queen of the pirates, and that meant she got what she wanted, including the brunette's curvy body. Vivi lay to her left, moaning in happiness at being another of Nami's brides. Nami had to admit that steamy night in the royal baths had lingered in her mind since then, and the blue-haired royal was all too happy to admit she felt the same. Now she, Nojiko, and Robin shared the task of sating their queen's lust, something they did with religious fervor. And speaking of Robin, she walked into Nami's chamber with a bow. "Good morning, my queen. Sanji is preparing your breakfast now, but I have excellent news. The world government has raised your bounty." Nami detached her hands and took the paper. She saw the new picture of her, an actually threatening headshot of her as opposed to the pin-up picture of the last one. "Cat burglar Nami, 160 million," she read. While she was happy at finally being recognized, that same epithet made her wonder. Not bad, but they still see me as a subordinate to Luffy. I need to do something bigger. If I may make a suggestion, my queen? Robin leaned in and whispered into Nami's ear, making the queen chuckle. Now that would finally get the brass at the top of the Marines to notice. She rewarded Robin with a hand slipping right down her skirt, teasing her archaeologist as Nojiko and Vivi woke up and eagerly planned for some morning fun time before getting their latest operation underway. The snow swirled around G5, one of the more notorious marine bases in the New World. Not only did it act as a stronghold preventing pirates from trickling into the planet's most tumultuous waters, but the sailors on staff here had also gained a reputation as bloodthirsty sadists, only matched by those in Impel Down. And with the recent revelations that the Joker of the underworld himself had his claws in the place, it was only thanks to Vice Admiral Smoker that the place wasn't shut down. The cigar-chomping smoke man was in his office sifting through all manners of paperwork with his usual scowl, only for someone to burst down his door. "Yes, sir. We have an incoming pirate attack." Smoker stood at once, the stuttering following him outside and giving all the details he could. Dozens of ships from an assortment of crews, totaling about 10 different Jolly Rogers. "So, some sort of alliance then? Do we have reinforcements?" "Yes, sir. Rear Admiral Hina is on her way with the Black Cage fleet as we speak." "Good. Anything else of note?" "Well, sir, I don't know how to phrase this. Quickly, if you can." Why, yes, sir. The largest of these ships is, well, gold, sir." That did make the Vice Admiral blink. He reached the outlook on top of the base, and could already see the base's ships being deployed to meet the oncoming attack force. Smoker had to give these guys some credit. This was no band of hotshots. This was a full-fledged assault, and the apparent leader of this crew clearly was not kidding. True to his word, he could see something huge glimmering in the icy waters. A battleship on par with the Navy's best, well over 100 feet long from bow to stern with 2 rows of a dozen cannons on each side. And just as the sailor said, the ship was gold from the sails to the hull. He didn't recognize the Jolly Roger, but even that looked dazzling as it flapped in the wind. Smoker kept a keen eye out for any notorious pirates, watching as the enemy pirates fired on the Marines. Then, little by little, he started to notice the snow pick up until it was a solid sheet of white that blinded the whole battlefield. Down on the ground, at the entrance for the base, Captain Tashigi had her katana ready and kept her observation haki up to sense any sneak attacks, only for a bright beam of light to fire out of the whiteout, and annihilate one of the ships. What the? Tashigi then noticed the gilded galleon turning its way towards the entrance of the base, and steeled her resolve and rushed ahead. She didn't care if her armament hockey was no match for an attack like that. She had to uphold justice. Pushing all her strength into her legs, the captain managed to land on the approaching golden galleon. And yet, to her surprise, no one else appeared. The cannons must have been manned below deck, leaving the top level bare as far as she could see. The planks beneath her feet were just as golden as the hull and mast, a true show of opulence. Yogug! She raised Shigeru, as a ghastly moan echoed across the deck. With her observation hockey, Tashigi could sense someone tied to the back of the mast. She approached cautiously, waiting for an ambush, before turning around the golden mast and dropping her jaw. Monkey D. Luffy? Indeed, the infamous young pirate was bound by coils of rope covering his knees to his shoulders. More shocking than that was his face, covered with bruises including one eye swollen shut. Oh my god, what happened to you? Help me. You have to stop here. Tashigi sliced him free, grabbing a hold of his limp body before it could fall onto the deck. She then noticed the issue, sea-stone anklets attached to his feet. Who did this to you? Whose ship is this? Mine, of course. Standing in the open cabin door was Nami, now adding a black fur coat styled after crocodiles and a deep orange tricorner hat set off by her fiery hair. Tashigi felt her knees buckle at the woman's presence, her aura overwhelming even from several feet away. This is the El Dorado, soon to be the most feared vessel in all the world. Even as I absorb more crews and annex islands, this shining golden beauty will decimate any who oppose me. And Nami? Then, the rumors about your mutiny were true. You have seemed decent intel. Now then, how about we go somewhere more private to talk? Nami grabbed a hold of Tashigi's wrist in a flash, relishing in gaining more hockey and sword skills, before porting them both back to Weatheria. As soon as she was gone, Carrot popped out to drag Luffy back to his cell while Robin led the attack on G5 in her queen's place. Tashigi soon found herself in an opulent throne room, stacks of treasure chests lining the wall behind an ornate, black-seated chair lifted from Alabasta's palace. Where are we? How'd you do that? Oh, just one of my many devil fruit powers, and this is my mobile base. Now then, I'm in the market for a good swordswoman. Robin has that role now, but I was looking for someone more specialized. Wait, what? You want to recruit me, a marine captain, into a pirate crew? That's absolutely insane. I'd never join one. Oh, you say that now. But I understand, taking such a massive risk by yourself is quite scary. Thankfully I have someone you might be able to relate with. Nami clapped her hands twice, cueing someone to burst open the door at the end of the room. Belmir walked in with someone over her shoulder before dropping them unceremoniously onto the carpet. The cyborg just bowed before leaving, Tashigi gasping at the woman who was brought in. Rear Admiral Hina? When did you capture her? Yesterday. I was eager to give my ship a test run, so I deployed it against the infamous Black Cage fleet. I had to commend her. She lasted a whole 10 minutes. You monster, Hina growled, furiously struggling against the band of metal that bound her wrists together. I have no idea what you are or how you copied my cage fruit, but I swear you'll pay. Nami just chuckled, idly wandering over to grab one of the many treasure chests. She admired a humongous ruby, easily a dozen carats, before turning back to her two captives. Part of my power isn't just taking your abilities, it gleans your knowledge and memories. Even without that, my observation hockey is so advanced that I can easily read a person's emotional state. And I sense a burning sense of justice in you both. Clearly, you want to protect people and keep the peace. The queen then strode up, placing a hand on each woman's forehead. But can you say the same of the world government? Nami let all of the knowledge of the WG's corruption flow, acquired from the hundreds of pirates, turncoat sailors and casual civilians, rampant taxation of allied countries, a general hands-off attitude when it came to actually protecting nations from pirates, bribery, internal politics taking precedence over their jobs, and the psychotic attitudes of those who practiced absolute justice as seen on O'Hara. But that all paled compared to the biggest hypocrisy, the world nobles. A breed of self-indulgent, narcissistic, monstrously unempathetic sociopaths who literally laughed off any consequences for the likes of murder in broad daylight, and imprisoning innocent people for their amusement. Nami had seen the slave auction house in Sabaody, but that was far from the only dirt she had on them now. In a few seconds, both Tashigi and Hina were shaking in their seats. The captain was openly sobbing at the truth, that the supposed good guys she fought for were infinitely worse than any pirate. The rear admiral just looked down, utterly ashamed. Say what you will about me, but I practice exactly what I preach. But the Navy? All of it's a pompous joke. A crime-fighting force that overlooks the worst criminals in the world. I don't have an island wiped out for nosing around history books. I don't enslave people for kicks. What about Luffy? Tashigi asked. Why you had him TT tied up? He's there to see what real pirates are like. Even after all this time, he still goes on about stealing being bad and how we're supposed to be friends honestly. I might just have to let him go soon. He's as strong as there is, but that doesn't mean squat if he won't follow orders. Hina just steeled her gaze. Okay, you've made your point about the government. But in a purely hypothetical question that I'm not asking right now, what makes you think you can do better? Nami sat back on her throne, smiling. First of all, there would be no world nobles. The entire system is just stupid and arbitrary, so I'd abolish it immediately. Second, I would essentially leave islands to their own doing. No sense policing them all, aside from say a small tribute that's still not as extreme as the WG's taxation. And third, my goddess pirates would act as the Marines claim to act. Anyone who makes trouble will be silenced immediately, assuming they cannot be recruited. They won't accept bribes, they won't endanger civilians, and they most certainly won't let what minuscule power they have go to their heads. Any who do will have me or my inner circle to deal with. What if someone tries to overthrow you? Then they'll lose. If you both think I'm powerful now, I'm still far from done. I haven't even gained the powers of the admirals or the 4 emperors. And even then, I'll work to find new ways to get stronger. Also, unlike the Marines, I don't rest on my laurels. Both Marines stared at each other. They knew exactly who Nami was talking about. To think of someone having all of that might for herself would make her nigh unstoppable. And what about that inner circle? Tashigi asked. What do they get for helping you? For now, they get granted devil fruit abilities, haki and specialized skills. I can pass those over whenever I want as well. Down the line, they'll be rewarded with riches, territory, and an important role to play. Robin, for example, will act as my intelligence agent on top of finding out the secrets of the Void Century. She then sauntered over to Tashigi, kneeling down to stare the bespectacled Marine in the eye. That's my modus operandi. Those who serve me well will be rewarded, and those that defy me will be crushed. Sounds like a simple form of justice, doesn't it? She then moved to Hina, reaching behind her and easily snapping the metal brace like she was pulling off a bandage. And if you two join me, you can one day be the new lawmakers. You can be the ones enforcing the rules, protecting people so that my empire is undisturbed. Doesn't that sound better than obeying a bunch of decrepit hypocrites who allow the celestial dragons to exist? Tashigi bowed first, her glasses clacking against the floor. Yes, it does, please, Queen of the Pirates, accept me into your crew. Hina gulped. The sheer power this young woman exuded made her weak in the knees. She still couldn't believe how quickly her entire fleet fell. And barring that, she did truly hate the world nobles with all her might. Very well, Queen Nami. I will join you as well. Excellent choice. Now then, for a little initiation. Nami placed a hand on them again, the turncoat Marines moaning at the raw flood of power filling their bodies. While only 5% of Nami's maximum, it was like being filled pure electricity. They felt their minds awaken to observation and armament reinforcing their bodies. Once they were done, Nami jumped them all back to G5. Both Marines gasped at the wreckage. Derelict ships floated half-sunken in the icy waters while the outside of the base was covered in cracks, burn marks and spears. They also happened to appropriate Hina's signature harpoon launchers when they captured her. Follow me. Both turncoats did as instructed. Nojiko simply walked up and bowed to her sister. He is waiting, my queen. I left him mostly unharmed just as you asked. Perfect. Remind me to give you a special reward later. Nojiko moaned as she headed off, leaving Tashigi and Hina staring in bewilderment. Soon they were brought to a snow-covered training yard where Smoker was tied to a pole with seastone cuffs binding his wrists. What are you doing back here? Haven't you taken enough yet, pirate? What a silly question, Vice Admiral. There's still something I want. Nami pointed at the man as a clone of hers went to unbind him. You two will prove your loyalty to me. Defeat him using the power I granted you. What? Smoker yelled. You can't be serious. Like my own protege and my longtime friend would ever dash. He stopped as Tashigi unsheathed her katana and Hina cracked her knuckles. He couldn't believe it. Both were actually going to attack him. You two, you wouldn't. After all we've been through together? What about your pride, huh? What about justice? You have no right to talk about that, Smoker, Tashigi said gravely. You serve an organization that has desecrated justice for centuries. Queen Nami has given us the chance to make the world into a better place. Hina coated her hands in haki. Don't take this personally, Smokey. I'll put in a good word for you once Queen Nami gets a new system up and going. Nami just sat back and watched. Even though Smoker had learned armament for himself, it wasn't a match for two ferocious fighters who possessed the perfect means to bypass his plume fruit. Hina trapped him in no time with armament-infused bindings while Tashigi slashed him down. In less than a minute, the Vice Admiral was unconscious on the ground. Magnificent job, you two. Welcome to the Goddess Pirates. Head outside the base and the El Dorado will pick you up. We're having a celebration in honor of your arrival. Thank you, Queen Nami. They both bowed before leaving. The Queen then hungrily eyed the fallen Marine before laying a hand on the back of his neck. Yes. She gasped at the impressive new strength added to her body, plus further observation and armament haki. But even better was getting a second Logia. Nami stood and turned her arms into smoke, before throwing her hands forward and utterly destroying the yard's back wall with a double white fist. Now then, all three varieties of devil fruit are mine. And now the world government will see that no one is safe. If I don't attack their bases, I turn their own soldiers into my crewmates. But soon I'll really make the world know my name. It's not every day when someone demolishes one of the emperors, after all. Thanks for watching this video. You really enjoy this video. Like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. Don't forget to support and follow Milo F. Waters for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story link in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.